And welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. So on today's episode, we're going to head out to Harvard Law School to go get our law degree. We're going to go get our nails done at the local salon. I guess solve a murder trial. That's always fun. I love that. But on today's episode, we are going to be covering 2001's Legally Blonde. I have the longest running guest on my show to date at this point. You've heard her on my episode on Cruel Intentions, Dazed and Confused, and maybe another episode, I don't remember. But Clueless. Yes, you're right. Anyway, so if you didn't already hear her, please welcome to my show, my wonderful sister, Sarah Heidelberg. Sarah, how are you doing today on this fine Sunday afternoon?
I'm doing great.
Great. Wonderful. We have the dog in the background, too.
You're going to be quiet.
She went to the vet, and she's doing good, everybody. I know you're probably wondering. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, we're doing Legally Blonde today because it's my show, and I can do what I want. But also, I do think this movie has a legacy to it, and I think it is even though it did well, like, when it came out, I think it's just worth covering, and I have a history with this movie that I really enjoy, and I'm sure my sister does too as well. And I just know a lot of other people do too. But without further ado, though, Sarah, why exactly are we doing Legally Blonde? Why'd you want to come to my show today to do this episode?
Because it is a very funny, lighthearted movie.
Yes.
It does, if you want to dive deep into it in a way, it can definitely have its things you could speak about.
Yes, we will.
But for the most part, it's lighthearted.
Yeah, I think so.
With a little bit of seriousness to it, but not,
nothing too
overwhelming.
Serious. Yeah. Nothing too dramatic.
I mean, it's just a fun movie to watch. It's the quotes that's become like Mean Girls, Forrest Gump, movies that are quotable. It's definitely become some bit of a quotable type movie.
Oh, completely.
As I was writing my notes for the movie, when I watch it, and my best friend Barbie, who also shout out to Barbie.
Shout out Barbie.
She always gets a shout out on the show.
Yes.
We always, we'll quote this as our like friend lingo slang. We quote things.
Yeah.
Things that we like Romeo and Michelle and Friends and this and what other movies and TV shows that come out of that. And we just have our, anyway, that's just what it is. And it's just as far as, just liking the movie in itself, I'm a sucker for rom-com. I mean, I'll pretty much watch almost any rom-com there is out there.
Yeah.
And I do love Reese Witherspoon.
As we heard on our Cruel Intentions episode.
Like she's...
And this is her movie. Like, to me, we'll talk a little bit about it, but I mean... Like
her first real movie, on her own.
That she's a lead in. Because even though, yes, she led some...
And nobody else could have played this part.
Yeah. Like Cruel Intentions, she was in that. She was in Pleasantville. She was in other movies, obviously. But, this one is, she is the lead of this movie. We are following her. And I think that was one of the first times she got to do that, where she wasn't just a supporting role.
Right.
And that's why I really like it, too.
And, but as far as, with the way the movie is, there is a few shows and there's a few shows and movies out there that make me think of my friends, family, and this is a nice best friend movie. Not best friends that it's a best friend type movie, but I think about my best friend when I think about this movie because of the watching it together and stuff like that. So absolutely. It just makes me when if I see this movie, if I catch it on, I think of it makes you
absolutely.
It'll make me think of the podcast now that we're doing an episode, and it makes me think of my friend, and and it's just it's just fun.
Yeah, I think if anything, it makes me think about just being a young gay boy, I guess, and also just because for some reason this movie also does well with the gay folks, which we can kind of talk about why it kind of does. I also just like how
so much pink.
There is so much pink, but then also I think this movie is kind of in its core some sort of a feminist story, and we can get into it as well. Just 100%. Where we weren't seeing, we were seeing some female-led movies, but this one is about.
Let's really think about it. This came out in 2001.
Pre 9/11. I know, right? It did. I know, right? But this movie is one where I'm it's a woman. I
really don't think there was that many movies. I'm sure you probably, if you really looked into it, you probably seen it.
For sure. But I think this one is something where so many people enjoyed it because it is a story about a girl who at first is so about material things, and she's just kind of like about the looks of things, and then she realizes like that's not what life is, right. And also she's doing something good for her own self. So as we normally do on the show, we're going to go over some figures of the movie, go over some quotes about it, go over the production history, and then also we'll move into a plot summary of this film. So this movie in particular, it was directed by Robert Luketic, who's an Australian. And he was written by McCullah Lutz and Kirsten Smith, the screenplay. This was produced by Mark Platt and Rick Kidney, which we'll talk about in a little bit. This was released July 13th of 2001, so pre-9/11, like I said. Budget of $18 million, and it made money of $141 million pretty much. We're looking at a 71% on the tomato meter for Rotten Tomatoes, and then a 72% audience score. So not certified fresh, but it should be. We're looking at a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, and a Letterboxd score of 3.8 out of 5. So then for our cast of characters, we have Reese Witherspoon as Elle Woods, Luke Wilson as Emmett Richmond, Selma Blair as Vivian Kensington, Matthew Davis as Warner Huntington III, Victor Garber as Professor Callahan, Jennifer Coolidge as Paulette Belafonte, Holland Taylor as Professor Elspeth Stromwell, I guess. Ali Larder as Brooke Taylor Wyndham, Jessica Cofield as Margot, and Alana Ubach as Serena McGuire, apparently. Francesca R. Roberts as Judge Marina R. Bickford, Oz Perkins as David Kidney, Linda Carnellini as Chutney Wyndham, Bruce Thomas as the EUPS guy that Paulette's in love with, Meredith Scott Lynn as Enid Wexler, Wayne Fetterman as one of the Harvard admission counselors, Raquel Welch, rest in peace, as Mrs. Wyndham Vandermark, Kimberly McCullah as Amy, one of the sorority sisters, Greg Serrano as Enrique Salvatore, the guy at the end, Alice, yes, Beasley as UCLA advisor, and then Mooney as Bruiser Woods, the little dog. And we have some critical response quotes about this movie. Some critical response quotes about Legally Blonde are as follows. We have David No from the Film Journal International, who states, "Soon degenerates into a too slick silliness that confuses empowerment with cloying cutesiness." We then have Robert Bledsoe from Film Threat, who states, "Mrs. Witherspoon is cast well above her considerable talents as an airhead, Bel Air brat who has it all." And then we have Kenneth Turan from the Los Angeles Times, who states, "This film can't figure out where to go with its concept and increasingly unravels as it marches along." So, a little bit about this background is, with this movie in particular, so this film was actually a book. Sarah just found this out. So this was a book called Legally Blonde, which I always think is a really funny title because it's legally bond. It's kind of funny. But it was written by Amanda Brown. So she published it in 2001 and was basing it on her real life experience as a blonde who was attending Stanford Law School while being obsessed with like fashion and beauty, like reading Elle magazine, hence the name of the character, and then like clashing with the personalities of her peers. Because she herself is a more like feminine type girly girl type of girl, and then some people, I'm not trying to generalize about the law profession, but I'm assuming that when you go to law school you got a lot of serious types up in there, I'm sure. Brown said that when she first arrived at Stanford, she discovered that she made a big mistake. She's quoted as saying, "I was in my first week of law school in 1993 and I saw this flyer for the Woman of Stanford Law, and she was like, I'll go meet some nice girls. That'll be fun, whatever." She went to the meeting, and these were not women, from what she said. That's a little problematic, but whatever. She said they were really angry people. The woman who was leading it spent 3 years at Stanford trying to change the name Semester to Ovester, which is in this movie.
Oh, okay.
I started laughing, and I realized everyone in this room took it very seriously, so I didn't make any friends there. She wrote letters to her parents about these experiences and originally thought about writing a book of essays about her experience in law school until a literary agent advised her to actually turn that into a novel. So she took like a class on writing, put together a manuscript, and shopped the book around, but she was unsuccessful. She then later got the attention of a manager, of an agent, and movie people went nuts. And so her mom remembers the day of the bidding war and thought that she'd be lucky to get $10,000 for the story, but the figure was much bigger than that. And so then producer Mark Platt, who if you don't already know, he's done quite a few different movies, but he's also the daddy of Ben Platt, our own Evan Hansen. So that's him. But he was intrigued by the character of Elle Woods when an unpublished novel manuscript was delivered to him. He says, what I loved about the story is that it's hilarious, it's sexy, and at the same time it's empowering, says Platt. The world looks at Elle and sees someone who is blonde and beautiful, but nothing more. Elle, on the other hand, doesn't judge herself or anybody else. She thinks the world's great, she's great, everyone's great, and nothing can change that. She's truly an irrepressible modern heroine. So then the screenwriters, Karen McCullah Lutz and Kirsten Smith, spent 2 days on the campus of Stanford in the spring of 2000 just doing research for their screenplay. And then their director, Robert Luketic, he was an Australian newcomer who came to Hollywood. He made a short film called Tiziana Bubarini, apparently. Okay. And he was drawn to the project while he was looking for a breakthrough film. He said he had been reading scripts, looking for a film for about 2 years, not finding anything. But he could put his own personal mark on something until Legally Blonde finally came around. So the development of this story is Luketic explained that when he first got the project greenlit, they weren't aware that the film would be structured as a progressively feel-good women's empowerment movie. Initially, they thought it was going to be more like wet t-shirts and boobs than it actually turned out being. Fair enough, because that's Hollywood for you. Anyway, so in fact, the first script was a little bit edgier and raunchier, similar to something like American Pie. The murder trial wasn't a part of the plot, and it ended with Elle getting into a relationship with the professor. So it transformed from nonstop zingers, I know, that were very adult in nature to this universal story of overcoming adversity to being
much better
oneself.
how it turned out.
Absolutely. When it was decided to change the plot, the screenwriters finessed some details and then added a few characters like Paulette. You were telling me a little bit, Sarah, about other people who were considered for this role. Can you tell me who some of those people were?
Yes. So the other actresses that were considered for the role of Elle Woods, which, you know, to their
credit,
credit and greatness that they have done other things.
Yes.
Reese Witherspoon just was
absolutely, and I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah.
So Charlize Theron, who went on to go do Monster.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Gwyneth Paltrow, which would she do? Shakespeare in Love. I think
Shakespeare in Love.
Did she win an Oscar for that?
I don't know. She might have. And she's also Goop. Yeah, we don't talk about that.
And her mom is... Well, she's got famous parents.
She has famous parents. Yeah. Yes.
Alicia Silverstone, our clueless...
Obviously.
Our clueless girl. We love her.
Mm-hmm.
Katherine Heigl, who went on to go do Grey's Anatomy. Christina Applegate, who we also love here.
Love, because...
Which we need to do Don't Tell Mom Babysitter.
Well, we're doing it. It's on the list, and Sarah can be a part of it if she wants to be. That's fine.
I'm right on top of that, Rose.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I'm butchering her name.
Mila Jovovich from Dazed and Confused,
and
the Resident Evil movies, all that.
And Jennifer Love Hewitt, which was in Can't Hardly Wait, Party of Five, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she was kind of like the it girl in the 90s.
Yeah, she was like a young lady, yes.
And they were all considered for Elle Woods.
Yeah, but the director was like, he knew on page 5 of the script that he wanted Reese to play this.
Nice.
He wanted somebody with gravitas and brains. There had to be more behind the face, and Reese just fit the bill. She was the first person who read the script, and it was not sent to any of the actresses. Again, people had to be kind of like considered for it, but they were like, oh, we need to get her if we can.
As far as they didn't audition for it.
Exactly. They were considered for it. I don't know if they actually auditioned for it, but who knows. Right. Casting director Joseph Middleton had also previously worked with her on Man in the Moon, which I recently just watched. Sad story, but it's kind of worth it, you know, if anything. And A Far Off Place. He strongly believed in her for the character when Platt brought up Witherspoon's name. So, for example, like, Applegate turned down the role, and Platt suggested at one point to cast Britney Spears. She was too busy doing crosswords, y'all. Okay, listen. But then, because of her SNL performance she did for that, they were like, nah, we're not going to do that. Anyway. But MGM was not convinced, though. Witherspoon's performance as Tracy Flick in Election. Have you ever seen Election?
No, but I've definitely wanted to check it out. Just never.
It's a good little movie. I would recommend it.
I feel like you've asked me this before, and I have not done it yet.
Yeah, it's worth it. Yeah, so they put her at risk for being typecast. So she's quoted as saying that they thought I was a shrew because if you don't know Election, I'm not going to spoil it, but she plays a very type A person who then goes she tries to be class president against the guy from American Pie, Oz. And then also some other lady as well. So
Matthew Broderick's in it too, right?
Yes, he is.
Is he a teacher or something?
He is a teacher.
Oh, okay.
That is correct. Anyway, maybe we'll do Election one day. I don't know yet.
You know what Jesse will not do? Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I'm not doing it. I hate that movie. Come at me.
Rude.
Anyway, whatever.
Well, I don't agree on that. But
Witherspoon had been passed over for several other post-election roles, so her manager finally called and said, you have to meet with these studio heads because he will not approve you. They think you're really your character from Election and that you're really repellent. And then she was also told to dress sexy. Okay. So she auditioned for the roles, even meeting with people in character. She remembers a whole room full of men who were asking her questions about being a co-ed and being in a sorority, like in character. And even though she had dropped out of college, though, and had never been inside a sorority house. But the director remembers meeting her to discuss how she'd approach the role. They met at a hotel in Sunset Boulevard and discussed the film. They were both concerned about some aspects, like how could this audience feel sorry for a girl who's like riding around in a Porsche, for example? And she had to dress in a particular way that wasn't distracting or off-putting. And I think every decision came from a certain innocence of the character. And I think you really do see that. And I think really she is this, not completely Pollyanna, but kind of sort of. Like she does see the world as a good place for the most part. So again, it could only be...
She's got her zingers and her times, in the movie when she's being... looked down on. And,
she has a certain naivete that I think...
But, all in all, she treats people...
Yeah, she treats
She's
people
getting
good.
treated as a quote-unquote blonde, which definitely does not feel good, because I've definitely been there, hey, I might literally have blonde hair, although I've definitely had blonde.
All of it, yeah.
But, well, I'm 30... going to be 34 this year, but I'm 33, and I got a little gray streak, a couple of stuff.
Me too.
So I do... It looks good on Jesse. I don't know if you know what Jesse looks like, but it does work on him.
You don't. It's fine.
But he can pull it off. Me, it's like kind of like, ugh. I mean, it's not like crazy, but it's just enough where I'm like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
So yes, I not like full on platinum blonde like her, but yes, do have blonde. But I have been in school and or sometime maybe at a job and been called the ditz before, or ditzy, and or blonde, as you
welcome
put
to
it.
Being a woman,
and that sometimes unfortunately might be by another woman.
Exactly.
It might not have been actually coming at me and being rude, but I definitely have been called a blonde before, and not just because your hair color is blonde, or being called a ditz, and it's like
you're just like,
just
okay, thanks, Bill.
hey, like I'm
exactly.
Not the smartest person in the world, but like I definitely
you're totally
you know what
fine.
I mean. But I definitely obviously this was a while back, but it's definitely not it's not like something I'm gonna cry about, but it's just something that like like, it's just not cool to like say that about people. So in this movie, you definitely feel she definitely gets some hate.
There's people who have said, I guess it's kind of nicknamed like Clueless Goes to College. I don't think it's completely like that though, because yes, I think they have a certain naivete to each other. But I also think, like, there is, but at the same time, I'm like, also Elle Woods she's different than Cher.
True, but also, I would have loved to see Cher in college.
I know, I would love that
like,
too.
What?
Oh,
like, not that this would have been that, but like, if
no,
they would have done
great,
like
a continuation, hell yeah.
That would be good.
Jennifer Coolidge was cast as the manicurist Paulette. Apparently, rumors were that Courtney Love or Kathy Najimy could have done it, which would have been fabulous, I'm sure.
I'm sorry, you said
Kathy Najimy.
And who was the other?
Courtney Love, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, because she was kind of an actress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe Kathy Najimy, but...
Oh, Kathy Najimy would have been great as Paulette.
She would have been.
Oh, she would have been great. For the role of Warner's new girlfriend, Vivian, they were suggested to cast... Do you know who Chloe Sevigny is? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so her maybe... She could have worked. Yeah, she could have worked. But Selma Blair was cast instead, and they had recently worked in Cruel Intentions together.
Before,
so that was really nice. And then Allie Larder wanted to be one of the sorority sisters, which she would have been fabulous at. Mm-hmm. I would have loved it. But she fell in love with Brooke, and I think she does a great job at it. I love Allie Larder. They envisioned, so the screenwriters
She was in Final Destination.
She was in Final Destination, and Drive Me Crazy, and a couple different movies as well. Yeah. They envisioned Luke Wilson as they were coming up with Emmett Richmond, so for her love interest. They auditioned a bunch of guys. They were like, how about getting Luke Wilson for the Luke Wilson role? They had that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would have been fun. So the final product came after like 10 different drafts of the script. So they were working with the writers to try to really get something that they could shoot. An unused idea for the finished film was having a cameo appearance from Judge Judy in her essay. That would have been super fun.
That would have been amazing.
Oh, it would have been so good. But
Judge Judy takes no shit.
It would have been so good, but I don't think she really could get on board with it. So I get it. Alana Ubach suggested instead to cast Witherspoon's then husband Ryan Phillippe for a role. It didn't
I'm so
work
proud
out,
of you.
though.
You said it right.
Oh my god.
If you were to go back to our Cruel Intentions podcast.
Oh my god.
I do appreciate Ryan Phillippe, don't get me wrong, but I just don't...
He wouldn't have been in this movie.
He just wouldn't have worked for this movie.
He wouldn't have worked as Warner. It wouldn't have worked.
No hate, no shade. It's just...
Yeah,
Matthew Warner
Davis
worked with
Matthew
what
Davis.
It was.
Yeah. So Witherspoon researched the character by studying sorority girls on campuses. Mm-hmm. She went to dinner with them, joked that she was doing like an anthropological study, and really going into that. Just trying to like surround herself with that.
Right. So she's kind of like in the know.
Yeah. So she's in the know. So the cast and crew did research with like the screenwriters. Like I said, went to Stanford Law School for a week during like orientation, trying to figure out why would somebody go to law school and what was it really like. Mm-hmm. And I will quote a little interview with Reese Witherspoon. Said in an interview regarding her character, she's quoted as saying, "You see so many beautiful people in this world, especially in the world that I live in, and a lot of your first instincts is to discount women who put a lot of effort into their looks, as maybe not serious about their job, or maybe not serious about their relationships. I think everyone naturally jumps to those conclusions. I was interested in exploring the difference between the way someone looks and how people perceive them, and how they really are. I'm not necessarily perky and bubbly all the time, so it's been a lot of effort to stay up. And the amount of care and energy she puts into a lot of things has been really a challenge for me. And trying to convey that lightness all the time is hard work." Yeah. So that's kind of cool that she said that. Some of the costume design of this movie. So the costume designer, Sophie D. Rakoff, became friends with Witherspoon, bonding over Dolly Parton because she's a Southern girl. So she just liked each other. So, of course, her main color palette was pink. The backstory is that Reese and her, and maybe the production designers, went to sororities. They said they needed a signature color, and they were like, do we really want it to be pink? It's so on the nose. But then they were like, oh no, it has to be pink. Right. Also too, so I think Delta Nu is actually a real, like, sorority in there, but, not that I'm into fraternities and sororities, but I will give a shout out. And anybody who might be listening who might know of the Divine Nine at like the HBCU colleges, those colors for Delta Nu are absolutely AKA colors, Alpha Kappa Alpha. Mm-hmm. So it's so funny that like, I think Delta Nu is real technically in some way, shape, or form, but I do like how they had those colors of like, oh, you could see like for a black girl or whatever, who might go to a sorority at HBCU, they're like, oh, those are AKA colors. Like, duh, of course. Like, it's that green and pink kind of thing. So I was like, oh, I noticed that when I was watching it. I was like, I've seen those colors before. That's been a thing I've been aware of. Witherspoon had 40 different hairstyles for this movie. She did wear a wig for a couple of them.
And from trivia that we just found out, again, taking it with a grain of salt from what we get online,
yes,
is, I guess, Reese put in her contract, but again, this could be, don't quote us unless,
don't quote
Reese
us, we're not,
says, like, in from her mouth, it's like, hey, apparently in her contract, she got to keep all the
I wouldn't be surprised if
clothes,
she did. I really would.
Or a wardrobe, which would be amazing. And I have, because, I follow on social media, like Instagram, TikTok, and things like that. She's like really active on Instagram. Like, I do believe maybe like I honestly I want to say maybe around 2020 with COVID and everybody kind of doing. Remember, everybody was doing those reunions, and don't quote me. I don't know if they did a Legally Blonde one, but she may have videoed herself and had, like, not saying, hey, I have all these things, but, I think she definitely, I think, like you said, maybe it's not true, but it could be that she has it. And how, that's awesome.
I don't know if she kept all of her clothes, but I would be surprised if she kept some of them. Yeah. I would be, too.
Yeah. I mean, come on now, you have to.
Absolutely. Filming on this film, so both Stanford and USC refused to have the names in their film, and they were like, no, we can't do this. Although this is set at Harvard, a lot of these scenes were done at USC, UCLA, Caltech, and Rose City High School in Pasadena.
So it was set on the East Coast, but it was all shot on the West Coast.
I think it was, yeah. I think they might have gotten some, maybe some, aerial shots of her driving, and we'll get into that, because, oh my god. Yeah. But anyway, so, yeah. They have that. Do you happen to know who choreographed the Bend and Snap, by any chance? Because she is the choreographer of this movie, technically. In the credits and everything. Do you give up?
Susan Summers?
No, although that'd be great, wouldn't it be? No, it was Toni Basil from Mickey.
Oh,
so she technically, because she's a choreographer technically, and so she did the Mickey song.
I was like having to try to think of like a woman for choreography,
and she literally is in the credits as Toni Basil, like literally as the choreographer. There's not much dancing in this movie except for the bend and snaps. That's literally it. But yeah.
Also, off topic in a way, just want to shout it out. Matthew Davis, which of course I watched this movie. It came out in 2001. I probably watched it back then sometime. Yeah. I don't have a real distinct memory of like my first time watching it, but I do remember obviously watching it and liking it and all that stuff. And then they have their sequel.
Oh yes.
Which there's actually a little part of the. I'll get into it when we get to the little part of the plot summary. But anyway, as far as Matthew Davis goes, yes, I knew who he was in this movie because, it's like he's Warner. But over quarantine in 2020, I did binge Vampire Diaries.
Really?
The Vampire Diaries, which my friend Barbie, shout out again, had watched a couple years before. And, what was else? She watched it then. She's like, it's really good. I didn't watch it then. I think back on it now, maybe I should have, but, whatever. But I think it was on Netflix, and I binged it, and I'm, like, obsessed over it, and it's like, oh, it's so good. And, and he comes in a few episodes into the first season, and, it took me a bit, and then I'm like, okay, because you have all these teenage characters, and this and that and all the other, and Supernatural, and I'm, like, looking, I'm like, God, he looks familiar. And then it kind of took me a second. I'm like, oh my God, that's Warner from Legally Blonde.
Yep.
So obviously I knew him before this, but like watching Vampire Diaries is just funny how he's that.
I knew him.
Shout out to Vampire Diaries because I like it.
I knew him from Urban Legends Final Cut because I had seen that before. So he and Jessica Cofield are both in that movie together. Spoiler for Urban Legend Final Cut, but Jessica Cofield dies. She's Sandra and she dies. Matthew Davis, I think, kind of dies. I think
kinda
so.
Dies.
Because he plays a twin, so his twin apparently dies by suicide, and then but he comes back as his twin or whatever.
You know what's weird though? In fucking Vampire Diaries, he plays like a vampire hunter. So like he plays that right, and then he like apparently is in like he's used as like a body for this other vampire hybrid dude, whatever. Then he's like a vampire hunter and he's killing people. So it's like kind of weird how like he plays like a twin. He's not playing a twin in this one, but like how they use him in Vampire Diaries, how they're like he's like one way one time and one way another time.
That's
like
so weird.
He's killing people and he's like has to be stopped and then when he's like not when he turns that it's kind of like Dr.
Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like Dr. Jekyll like is the crazy one and then Dr. Hyde is like normal, teacher, he's supposed to be, but anyway.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about the production history, though. And then this movie came out and made a buku amount of money, which then made a sequel. And then, so you had that. And then, of course, it went on home video. It became popular with the youth then. And I think also, I definitely think it's very much a female story, which is why I think it resonated with young ladies. I think, going back to what I was saying, I think it... As a gay, I think it kind of resonates with our community too because it is a female story, and it's a female-led story, of course. And I think also just, she finds strength in herself. Also, in a weird way, she's very, she's flamboyant. She's over the top, from like when she's crying in the restaurant in the beginning and like she's just flamboyant, kind of over the top. Her fashions are really awesome. So I think gay men especially, like they can kind of gravitate to that. Yeah. But then also it's like a nice little feel-good story too, and it is empowering and it's nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then of course we can talk a little bit about, and we'll get into some other fun facts Sarah might have, but of course like this movie, like it spawned a sequel. It's on Tubi right now if you want to watch it. I haven't seen it.
The sequel's on?
It is on Tubi.
Oh wow.
For a couple days. And then also
I actually watched the second one. It had been years since I watched the second one, for real. Like
Regina King's in it, I know that. And Sally Field.
Yep. And Paulette comes back, and apparently Emmett's supposed to come back, but I think you only hear about him. He's actually not in it.
Which he's in the trailer for it.
Which is weird, because he's definitely not in it. It had been years since I watched it, and it had been quite some time since I watched it. I was like, I want to watch it again, so I can't remember. I found it on something, and I watched it a couple months ago, actually. Fun. So, with Legally Blonde, I own it, and I don't own the second one, but I own the first one. as we know. I think feel like everyone, every DVD or every movie that I've been on, I definitely have the DVD.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the most part. I watched that one kind of recently because I was like, I kind of remember what happens, but I'm like, I kind of don't.
Yeah.
So it was cool.
Yeah, and then of course we talk about the musical a little bit. They had a whole TV show about trying to search for Elle Woods.
I would have to say the first one is better, but the second one is like not a bad movie, but it's
not terrible. It's just like kind of a misfire a little bit, but yeah. We have the musical, of course. So they had a whole TV show looking for the Elle Woods. I don't know anything about the musical. I'm not diving that into it. Google it if you want to.
Was there something on Broadway?
Mm-hmm. It was literally on Broadway, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So there's that. And then, of course, the long-standing conversation of, is there going to be a Legally Blonde 3? To be honest with you, give up the Ghost Mama. I don't need a Legally Blonde 3. It's been a little too long. What are they going to do? You know what I mean? It's the same sort of thing I think about with shout out Barbie again. But even like we talked before about like how, you know, Romy and Michelle, like they maybe could have a like fun sequel or something. But even I think Barbie said, and I'm not trying to spill your BT, Barbie, but like, you know, she was like, I don't think they really need to, like, because I'm like, what the hell else are they gonna do? I don't know. Like, it's been a little too long. Like, it's been what the hell? Like, somebody has Reese has kids now. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, one of them's gonna be a lawyer. I don't fucking know. Like, you know, I don't know.
Well, here's a thought. You know,
this is our development to trademark, copyright. Give your movie idea.
Oh, so no, I was just thinking just something I just thought of because I've never really thought of a third one. Like, I mean, everybody tries to make like thirds of everything and fourths and whatever. But you know, with her being, it's true, and that was like 25 years later. It's crazy, and it was okay. Like Kathy to Jimmy, she was in that.
Love
movie.
her, love it, great.
But yeah, I mean, other than it was anyway.
Anyway, that's what Sarah thinks.
But what I can, as far as just kind of thinking off the top of my head, with her being with what she had to deal with back in the year 2001, and then they graduated in 2004. I mean, that was 20 years ago. They've really come back, and it's year 2023, 2022, 2023 year of what we're in right now.
Right.
Or whatever does get made, and it's in the future, it's 20 years later. It would be kind of something they could do where, she had to deal with diversity, or not diversity, but adversity, and so I remember there's part of it that says diversity in there, like yes. When they're doing like the mission, they're like, oh, there's no diversity, So she definitely had to deal with that. So it's like, I feel like sometimes whether we grow and we try and change as a society and public and all that stuff like that, just the things sometimes still stay the same. So like she could, help somebody else that maybe is getting the same way, or she could, one or two things, could be a professor, like
sure, like
that could be like she could have her own
copyright, trademark.
Yeah, that that's a thought. Or she could be like a big has her own law
big time lawyer,
or a big time lawyer, kind of like how Callahan was, like he's whatever they called him, and he's the top blah blah blah. So I mean, it's just and again there could be obviously a whole storyline, but that could be like what she is like. It wasn't like she got down on her luck and is not a lawyer anymore. Like
exactly.
She either went and had a big old law firm, maybe she went back and was like, hey, I'm going to teach her. Again, what'd you say? Trademark.
Yeah, trademark. Don't steal our ideas.
Again, if it happens, it happens. Honestly, I'll probably check it out because it's just how I am as a person.
To be honest, I kind of feel that too. And if they were going to do it, I'm just like, do it fucking now, dude. Right. I know you need money and like a studio to do it, but goddamn, you know what I mean? Anyway.
And we don't want Reese Witherspoon like in her 70s doing it.
Exactly. Plus, she's also too busy like producing all the movies and everything like that too. And being Reese
she's
Witherspoon.
doing the Daisy Jones and the Sixth or whatever.
Really?
It's coming out like next week.
Cute. Oh, a little off topic.
Kind of not plugging that, but like it kind of looks really good. And
what's Daisy Jones?
It's Riley Keough.
Ooh, yeah. Elvis's like granddaughter.
Yeah, Lisa Marie, rest in peace, her daughter.
It was in The Lodge, really good horror movie. Yeah, it's really creepy.
And Sam Claflin.
Okay.
Who was, I think if anybody watched this, they'd probably be yelling at me of who he was in something. I think he was in the one movie that had Emilia Clarke in it.
Okay. We got the Google in front of us. Yep. Wait a minute.
He's in it. So anyway, apparently it's supposed to be about a band.
He was on Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, that's not what I'm talking about.
He was in Peaky Blinders.
Me Without You? No.
Hold on. He was in Last Night in Soho. That's fun. It was a movie he was in?
Yeah, with the
Every Breath You Take?
Nope.
I'm just looking on like Wikipedia. Book
could,
of Love?
Nope. Again, I could be completely wrong right now. And
no, you're not. He is a thing. Hold on.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, people probably like, he's in. It's this. Yep.
Is it a TV show?
No, it's a movie.
Book of Love, Charlotte, Last Night in Soho, Every Breath You Take, Enola Holmes.
Me Before You.
Oh, wait a minute. When was that? Me Before. Oh, that was like in 2016. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, easier. I think I said Me Before You.
We're just idiots.
Yeah. Anyway, it's like a love. It's kind of like a whatever. So he's in it. What my understanding is they're kind of like a Fleetwood Mac type, 70s band. Got real big and all that stuff, and then like they were performing at something, and they split up, and then this is, I don't know, it looks really good. I think it's gonna have like a good vibe to it.
Yeah, cute. And she's executive producing it.
Yeah, so there's that.
I love that.
We love that Reese Witherspoon is like still acting.
Weird kind of fun little, not fun fact or whatever, but little off topic, because I put Rachel McAdams and Reese Witherspoon in a similar camp sometimes. And I kind of think it looks really cute. Have you seen the trailer for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret?
I don't think so.
You should watch it. I think it'd be really fun. You ever read the book, did you?
I don't think so.
Yeah. It looks like really fun. It's a book from the 70s. I'll ask my mom if she read it. But it's about like a girl who's like, her one parent is Jewish, her one parent is like Catholic or Christian or something. So she's like kind of dealing with that. So she prays sometimes and whatever. But she's also dealing with like, it was a book that was very challenged because it talks about like menstruation and how she has to get like pads and things like that. And back in the 70s, you can't talk about menstruation to young girls. Oh my God, you put that in a book? What?
How dare you?
How dare you? Like, but they're making a movie of it finally. Wow. And Rachel McAdams is in it. She plays the mom. Some girl, a nice young lady, is playing Margaret.
Right.
Kathy Bates is playing her grandmother. Like, it looks kind of fun. It looks kind of lit. I haven't read the book, but I don't know. Rachel McAdams and Reese Witherspoon are in the same camp for me a little bit because they're both good actresses, and I just put them in the same kind of.
I haven't really seen Rachel McAdams much now.
Yeah, but she's in that now. So
Reese Witherspoon just did the Netflix thing with Ashton Kutcher. I watched it. It was okay.
Yeah. Whatever.
I mean, I don't want to hate on her, like trash it, because I like them both, but yeah, she's still got her stuff.
Fun little fact. So yesterday when I was watching Legally Blonde, before that though, I tried watching Just Married, and me and Sarah were texting about it. And girl, you don't need to watch that. I don't think it's that good.
I feel like I did watch a little bit of it, but I don't think I ever watched it in full.
Yeah, I think you texted me that, and I was like, okay. Listen, I love Brittany Murphy so much, and
he really does.
Oh my God,
that's his girl.
She's so good, and she should be a girl. Like, come on, I'm gonna say it. Ashton Kutcher's not that good of an actor. I'm gonna say it. I don't give a fuck. He might have been good as Michael
Kelso.
Or whatever,
Kelso,
but besides that, no.
Yeah.
I can't. So, anyway, Sarah, do you have some fun facts you'd like to lay upon us before we move into a plot summary or anything?
The one guy, what's his name?
David?
David Kidney?
Yeah, David Kidney.
Kidney, like your organ?
Yeah, or also the guy who helped produce this movie, Rick Kidney.
Yeah.
It's probably funny.
Yeah. His dad was Anthony Perkins.
Yes, he was.
The Psycho guy.
Psycho guy, and he was also in other things other than Psycho, but...
Which I didn't know.
Kind of undercover gay a little bit.
Which I didn't know that the Oz Perkins, I think his name.
Osgood, but he goes by Osgood now, but he was known as Oz Perkins.
Oh, yeah, well, I think in the credits he shows up as Oz Perkins.
Yeah.
I read trivia, like, when I watch something, or...
He's also director more so now, so he did Hansel and Gretel, he did The Black Coat's Daughter, he's done a couple horror things, which is really interesting.
But I saw him in the movie just with
I love him, and he looks just like his dad.
Yeah.
Like, he really does look like his dad.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
I didn't know that he was that. It's like, oh, he's so and so's. That's his father, or it's Perkins' sons. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Nope. I think it's. As far as like I said with the as far as what I said with the keeping the wardrobe and stuff like that, which was kind of like, okay, yeah, it's cool. But other than that,
yeah, pretty much. I mean, for the most part, like, this movie, like, I think just has a certain legacy to it, and I really.
I'm sorry, I did.
She has some other.
No, I'll wait till we get to the
plot.
Their little part of it when she comes. It's kind of actually there might be one more thing I want to add before we get into the whatever you're doing next.
My plot.
Your plot. So I just came across this in the trivia. I'll just do it when she gets, it's when she's coming to, like when she's bringing her stuff into Harvard after she plot summary gets accepted.
But without further ado, though, I think the best thing to do in this case would be to move into a plot summary of Legally Blonde then. So I didn't actually take my notes down of like what the actual plot is of this movie, so we're gonna go as beat by beat as we can. I normally have that on my like reminders app or something, but I don't have that today because I was busy. Anyway, so we start off with our opening title where we have a girl from behind who is like brushing her hair. We also see a girl riding a bike across the campus.
Which the hair is not Reese Witherspoon.
It's not Reese Witherspoon. That's very correct. It's a stand-in, you know. So then we hear...
It has Reese-like hair.
Yes, Reese-like hair, yes. And then we hear Haku's Perfect Day.
Yes.
Which I always got confused with. I always thought that... I was there was somebody who it was Tatiana from RuPaul's Drag Race who said something about like, why did they not just switch these? Do you remember the movie Snow Day from
I was 2000? Just about to say that.
It's so funny that like Perfect Day is on this movie and then None Other Dumb Blonde is on that movie. But why did they not just switch them? Like, to be honest, it was so funny.
Literally so much sense.
Doesn't it?
Because
both are great songs, by the way. Yes. Go look them up. But like,
haiku.
Love Haku. Like, haiku. Doesn't really do much anymore with music, but whatever.
But oh my god, like a snow day would be considered
perfect day. It's so good.
And then Not Another Dumb Blonde is like, hello, oh my god.
I'm just saying, like Tatiana was going somewhere with that. But anyway, it really was. Love her. But anyway, no, a DC girl and everything. But so girls driving, riding her bike across campus, and then we just see. I guess we just see, like, some fucking, like, we get intercut with sorority house, Delta Nu. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, also, let me say, as I have in my notes, that the little cursive writing in the pink.
Oh, okay.
So cute.
Very cute.
It's in the beginning of the movie, not so much the end of the movie. The end of the movie kind of has, like, the black screen and, like, pink. It's not this, but this cute little credits.
It's really cute.
All that. It's really cute. I really enjoy the credits.
Yeah, so we're kind of, like, cutting through, like, the sorority house we end up at. Mm-hmm. So, you have, like, they're, like, exercising, and then they're, like, going into the bathroom where you just see some
scantily. And they have a card that they're going around.
Yes, they have a card that's going around for Elle and everything like that.
They're signing it.
Everyone's really white in this movie, so again, could be a little bit better, but oh well, it's 2001, unfortunately. But anyway, so you have all this going on, and it's just like really fun and great. And then we get introduced to our two friends of Elle, Margot and Serena, played by Jessica Cofield and Alana Ubach, respectively. And of course, Jessica Cofield is just like, I love her walk in this because she walks up with like her hand on her hip or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they take the card that people have signed for Elle and they slide it under the door. And that's when we get our intro to Miss Elle Woods, played by the one and only Reese Witherspoon.
Yep.
And so she has been getting ready. She sees this nice little card that her friends gave her. It just says like, forever, Ellen Warner or whatever. Like it just says whatever. And so we then get our intro to Bruiser, who is played by Little Mooney, that's her little dog she has. You could not have a fucking dog in a college campus, but whatever, it's fine. Yeah. So anyway.
Her cute little
chihuahua, who is not the Yokero Taco Bell dog. I think people sometimes think that, but it's not. No. Although apparently they were friends, he and the little dog.
They had to stick
together. And also they're both dead at this point.
They unfortunately passed.
Yeah. Anyway, but then our next scene we have.
Elle is thinking that her date with Warner is going to end up in a proposal.
Right, because we're at a party with her two friends and all that, and be like, well, he just had dinner with his grandma. It's not like she would FedEx the 6-carat diamond or whatever. And she's just like, oh, okay, good.
All these thoughts are in their head, like, this is what's happening. Like, all the sorority girls are so excited.
Yes.
Like, oh, she's going to get married.
She's going to get proposed to. It's going to be great.
All that, yes.
So then they're like, what's the one place where we can, get a little bit of, what's the one place we need to go? We need to get something great. So they go dress shopping. So then they go on to wherever the hell they're going.
Yeah.
And so we have...
they're like, oh, you should wear your signature color, which obviously we know is pink.
She's trying to give bridal, but not too obvious,
And she has this really pretty sparkly, which I was going to put in my
pretty
notes,
sparkly blue thing.
But then I was just like, I'm going to remember the dress, and it was so pretty. Oh my god.
It's really pretty.
And it's funny because it's like, it's definitely not like it's not like when you think of Elwood, you don't think of that color, but it definitely would have worked.
It's really pretty, though.
But yeah, I'm like, oh, it looks so good.
It is
so anyway, I wrote a little thing down in here, a salesperson bitch.
Yeah,
salesperson. So as she's
trying on the dress,
they're talking and she was like, they're going, oh, are you sure that's what you want to wear? They're like, oh, maybe you should do red, whatever. She like confident, I don't know.
The sales lady's like, I love a dumb blonde with daddy's plastic.
Yeah, and she rips the sale. Well, it's actually a sale dress, like a sale dress, and I don't know how much said it was, but still probably was a lot, but it was on sale. And of course, Miss Elle Woods is, fashion major, so she's going to know her. So
she's asking, like, oh, is it like...
so she brings it over, and she's like, we just got this in, and she's like, trying to, like, she's like, oh, this
is it low viscosity rayon? And be like, with a double heft hem on the whatever hell? And she's like, yes, of course.
You remember that, and I just
all that kind of shit. And then Elle is showing that she's smart because she's just like, it's impossible to do a hem on that rayon because it would stag the fabric. And I just saw it in the Vogue last season. So if you think you're going to try and give it to me for full price, I'm not your girl.
Yeah.
Which this is...
That's right.
That's right. And this is why she's a little different than Cher, because Cher's very naive because she's just been sheltered and rich her whole life. And not saying that Elle wasn't rich. She apparently grew up across the street from Aaron Spelling.
And in Bel Air.
In Bel Air. But it's like she is somebody who, she does have a brain. Like, she has a 4.0. Right. Like, she is kind of smart, and she's showing that. So she's like, okay, girls, like, in a few hours, I'm going to be Mrs. Waring Huntington III or whatever the fuck. And so then he comes by. So I keep wanting to call him Emmett, but it's not Emmett. It's Warner. He comes over, and he was a grade A douchebag.
Oh, 100%.
Oh my god, he comes in with his sunglasses.
Like, and they're like, they're like oohing and eyeing over
Oh my god.
And she's wearing this pink...
So cute.
Dress, pink. It's got like black lines on it. Not like a striped dress, but has her hair down.
Hunter. Wow, no, that's our cousin. Warner is played by Matthew Davis, Vampire Diaries, Urban Legends Final Cut, all that stuff. Yep. But yeah, so they're together, and everyone's watching them, which is really fucking weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're going out to dinner.
Yep.
So he's taking her out and all that. They end up at this restaurant.
Yep. And basically, he's like, she's just like, oh, I'm so excited.
Like I said, in her head,
she knows she's
like,
going to get proposed to. And he's like, I'm going to law school, because this is when you find out he's going to law school. The first 5 minutes. He's like, I gotta be serious.
If I'm gonna be a senator by the time I'm 30, like, I need to stop dicking around.
And she's like, of course. Like, she's just like, this is all leading up to, like...
And she's being so nice. She's like, I support you in that. And this kind of stuff. And then this is where you get because now I think it means... That's why I think Elle, Pooh Bear. And she's like... And they both just say, like, I think we need to break up. And then she says, I do.
And then, so she's...
And she's just like...
And she's like, excuse me?
And this is what I love about Reese Witherspoon, because she's gone from this girl who is just so, like, all about the material and all about the, like, look or whatever. And it's just that face crack she has.
Right.
It's so good. And I was like, that's very much Tracy Flick.
Yeah.
So, like, I was just like, oh, this... Right. That's great.
And, of course, she's blubbering and crying.
Oh my God,
because, like, crying. I mean, she's got broken up with in public.
Yeah, and she, like, is saying, like oh. So these last years that you've been with me, you were just dicking around, and she's saying it all in front of everybody. It's so good.
And then so I like this. What he, like, well, I don't like what he said because he broke up with her, but he was, he's like my brother
just got with a Vanderbilt.
And he was like, that's the kind of girl I need to be with. And she was like, so you're breaking up with me because I'm too blonde? And he was like, no. I need to marry a Jackie. Or Jacqueline, not a Marilyn.
Yeah, Jackie O. Jackie O. Yeah.
And she was like, you're breaking up with me because I'm too blonde? Like,
or my boobs are too big?
Yeah. Like,
and then it's just like her scream and wail, just like,
It's and then
so
everybody's
good.
just looking around like,
and then she's just like,
oh, okay.
Yeah, and then she's like, bad salad. Like, and she's just like, oh, you know what? You are just a great egg, like, whatever. And she walks away. He's like, yeah, go get the car, honey. Yeah. And then it's like all that.
So he is, the next part is her walking on the sidewalk and he's in the convertible, and he's like driving slow next to her.
Because she's just like not into.
Of course, she's just like tears running down her face, and he just broke up with her, and he's like, let me give you a ride home. She's like, no, and
he's like, you'll ruin your shoes, and she's just like, okay.
So she gets in, and then gets dropped off.
Gotta think of the shoes.
Yeah. So he drops her off when she gets in, and then when she gets in the car, he drops her off, and then he just like drives away. Yeah, he like lets her like out, and then it looks like she wants to say something to him, like, and then he's like, he doesn't like speed off, but he like drives off. Yeah, like doesn't like make sure she gets in okay.
No, doesn't say goodnight. No, nothing. Right. I know they just broke up, but like, goddamn, you couldn't at least treat me like a human. Like, are you kidding me? Anyway, so then we move into our next scene, which is the next day, I guess, or actually next week, because we find this out. And so Amy, one of the sorority sisters, she's like, knocks on the door to Elle. She's like, Elle, I'm still trying to get this whole lip liner thing. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, honey, you didn't hear.
And the other sister's like, oh, you didn't hear.
Yeah. And so then, like...
This is another
such good scene where it is... so you see that Margot and Serena have come to the room with, I think, their little like milkshakes or whatever the hell, smoothies, I guess. And so they've come in and be like, Elle is just sitting on the bed eating from her chocolates.
She's eating, so she's watching, I think, General Hospital or...
I guess, yeah.
We'll just say, I don't want to say General Hospital. Let's just say
insert soap opera here.
Yes. So there's a guy, like this blonde, good-looking guy on the screen. He's like, he says whatever it is to her. And she's laying in bed, all tissues around her, and she's in a breakup, hasn't left
very relatable.
Right. Exactly, like, been there, done that. Because, let me tell you, not saying you haven't experienced a breakup, but...
yeah, but you have, definitely.
But I have, and then with being a woman, and it's not fun being, either way.
Either way.
Being either way, like, a woman breaking up with a man breaking up with a woman, man, whoever it is.
Sucks.
It sucks being the one that's being broken up with, so yeah. I've definitely been there before, and it's not a fun feeling. But anyway, so she's laying in bed, she's got tissues around her, she's laying in there, and she's watching it, and then she's like eating her chocolates, and she's kind of like eating them, and then
then the guy says something. He says on the TV, he's like, "I love you," and then she just goes, "Liar!" and she just throws the chocolates.
She's like, "Liar!" and then she throws the chocolates. Such a good part.
Good.
Such a good part.
God, it's so good. Just liar.
I love it.
And then she's like, "Al, you need to get out. You've been here for a week."
Yes, they. I think she does that, and then they come in.
Mm-hmm, then they come in and all that,
And they bring her, like, here,
Here's your smoothie, and whatever. I'd be like, what's somewhere that we can go that always makes us feel better? Manicures and pedicures. Mm-hmm. Now, this is where Serena is being shady, because she's talking to the Vietnamese nail tech lady. And she says that she ate, like, 8 grilled cheese sandwiches. She just shoved them in her mouth. And I felt personally attacked, because I love grilled cheese.
Right.
And I make so many grilled cheese sandwiches. God damn it. I felt so... there's nothing wrong.
Cheese and tomato soup.
There's nothing wrong with eating 8... Well, maybe don't eat all of them right in her mouth. Maybe you should, whatever. But I just noticed that line. I was like, wow, rude. Okay, fine. But it's okay. I love you, Lana Ubach. But yeah, she did that.
Yeah. And then she's like, starts like speaking like Vietnamese.
She just starts speaking Vietnamese, and she's like, she's never gonna get a man without with the way her nails look with those cuticles. Yeah. And then the girl's like, no shit in Vietnamese.
Yeah. So
she hasn't conditioned her hair in a week. She's good for the grunge look.
Yeah. Serena and
Margot
are sitting getting their nails done, and there's like a waiting area where Reese and this older lady is sitting there.
Yes.
Like, the older lady's reading a magazine. Mm-hmm. And then Reese is just kind of sitting there like, oh, well, she's sitting there like sulking. And then
No, I think Elle is actually reading the magazine, and then she sees that...
No, I think the lady was also reading a magazine.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, I think so too. But
I don't think she was doing it at first, and then she picked up a magazine.
Yeah.
And then she's looking, and she's like... And then she's just like, So
she sees a picture
and she sees a picture of Warner's brother.
Mm-hmm, who had just got with the Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt, yes.
I love the old lady, because she's like... Because pretty much Elle is like, this is what I need to be. Like,
She tells the old lady this.
The old lady
lady's like, what?
Wait, what? I don't know who that is. And she's like, this is what I need to be. This is what Warner wants. And she's like, what? Practically deformed?
Yeah.
She's like, no, a law student. And so then I believe
this old lady's probably like, okay.
She's like, okay, girl, all right. But then, so we then go to the next scene. So now Elle has in her mind, all right, I'm going to go to law school.
Right.
That's what I'm going to do.
Warner dumped her because she's not smart enough.
Serious enough.
Right, it's too serious enough. I need to go to law school. Like, I need to make this happen.
That'll make me serious, right.
Right.
So she goes to her nice admission counselor, played by Alice Beasley, who I told Sarah this, but she is actually she is an actress from the 80s and stuff. Mm-hmm. But she's also, if you ever watched Recess on ABC or Disney, she's actually the voice of Miss. Yes, back in the day. Before we started recording, we were definitely looking at the One Saturday Morning intro, and then also the Wonderful World of Disney intro, because we are literally we're children. But anyway, so it's fine. Mm-hmm. And simpler times. She was actually Alice Beasley, who plays this admission counselor. She's actually the voice of Miss Grotke from Recess, which was kind of fun. You could definitely tell. She's the teacher, yeah. And so she's like, Harvard Law? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, but that's a top 3 school. And she's like, oh, I have a 4.0. But then she's like, yes, but your major is in fashion merchandising. Which, fun little fact, law schools do not care what you major in. Most of them have political science majors, history majors, whatever the fuck. So actually having somebody who comes from a little more of a creative background is not a bad thing in case you want to go to law school. But anyway, so there's that.
Well,
just so you know. But pretty much, we don't actually get the name of this lady, but, pretty much, you know who also could have been a fabulous person to play this?
Who?
Didi Khan from Grease.
I can see that.
I can see it, too. Don't you think?
Playing into the, well, not high school, but, into the kind of, the schooling.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because she's a beauty school dropout. So good. It'd be so funny.
Oh my god, yeah,
that would have been great. I'm just saying it would have worked for her. I love this, but Didi Kong could have done great.
Maybe it wasn't in her schedule.
Maybe it was in her schedule, but I would have loved her in there. It would have been great.
I get it.
She would have worked because they have the funny voice and all that. It would have been great. But anyway, so pretty much this admission counselor is saying, all right, if this is what you want to do, she's like, what are your backups? And she's like, no, I'm going to Harvard Law. And so you know what? She's a girl after her own dream, okay?
She's like, I'm going to Harvard Law, and it's going to happen.
Yeah, so of course she doesn't tell her that she's chasing her ex-boyfriend, but whatever. So she says, all right,
I'm chasing after my ex. Yeah.
Exactly. But she's like, all right, well, if you're going to do this, you need excellent recommendations from your professors. Mm-hmm. So you do a strong admission essay and at least a 175 on your LSATs, which is as Katya from Drag Race said, it's not learning things and stuff, which I wish it was, but it's the law school admission test. Uh-huh. So she's like, all right, cool, I'm going to go do this. All right. So then, if I'm not mistaken, I think the next scene after this is where she is reading in her room, if I'm not mistaken. And she's has all this stuff on the floor with her, and she's reading it. This is where I love where the friends walk by the door, and this is Jessica Cofield. Where are you, girl? I love you, and I think you're so funny. So they're walking by the door, and Margot's like, I have a really high metabolism. A really high metabolism. And then Serena's just it's metabolism. And then they just look at Elle, and just that stupid improv. She
has all these books around her.
Yeah, so they're like, "What are you doing?" Be like, "Girl, I'm reading up on the LSAT." And she's like, "Oh, my cousin had that. It's a whatever." And she's like, "It's an exam, guys. Girls, I'm going to law school." And then they're like on vacay. Let's all go road trip. Dingbats, idiots. I love them. They're the best. They're one of the best parts, honestly. Yeah. But anyway, so they're like, no, I'm going to Harvard Law School. She's like, why? But why? And so they're she's pretty much just saying well, Warner's there and da-da-da-da, whatever. I love Serena, who just says Elle, I know you're kind of broken up about this whole thing, but can't you just take a Percocet? It's just so good. Also, a little fun fact, if you don't already know, Alana Ubach and Reese Witherspoon were both in Freeway together. Freeway has come up on a bunch of these episodes, by the way. I'm going to cover it at some point. It's a fucked up movie, but they were both on there. But
I feel like that movie and this movie are
completely different.
Right.
But they're okay, you know what? But we're going to support you. We're your friends and all that. So Margot gives her her lucky scrunchie. You're going to need this. Be it's my lucky scrunchie. It helped me pass Spanish. And then Serena's all you passed Spanish because you gave Professor Montoya as a lap dance. And then she says, yeah, luckily. And yeah, don't do that with your professors. But okay, whatever. It's a different time. Anyway, so we're all right. So that happens. If I'm not mistaken, we then have a whole montage of her preparing for the LSAT. If I'm not mistaken,
I believe so. It's a little couple scenes.
So it's like different scenes where, like, for example, like she is trying to read up on like how to pass this exam. She's doing these different logic questions, things like that. So, like, she sees these guys from a frat who, like, you know, are like, Delta Nu, we love you. And then the one girl who's like helping her study, she's like, no. She's like, go back to this.
Right.
And so she's trying to do her LSAT. She gets like a 143 on it. And then she's trying to get better at it. And they're just like, oh, okay, girl. And then I think there's some other like random scenes. Like, I think they go to a salon, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway, so the basic idea is that she's trying to like work towards, you know, this is before her video essay. Or actually, if I'm not mistaken, this is
there's a part where she's getting they're getting like their hair done, or they're under like the dryers, like the big, you know, circle bowl things. And then Bruiser's got like little
oh yeah. Oh, plus also this also begins. So this montage does also begin the actual video essay that she sends in.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken. Because beforehand, you know, she goes to her parents. She's like, Harvard Law School, and then they like she's in the pool and all that.
Her mom's like, oh, she was like, why do you want to go to Harvard Law School? And then his dad's like, that's for boring ugly people.
Like you were a Miss Tropicana or Miss Hawaiian Tropicana or whatever the fuck. But yeah, so that's what starts it, is that we see that there is this video essay.
Well, that's not part of the thing, but she's in there. I guess like her parents have like, a nice house and a pool, and she's in. You can see because she's like in the pool, but she kind of has like her elbows on the side. Mm-hmm. You see a really pretty sparkly bathing suit, which comes into play, and I do have that noted in my notes that love her sparkly bathing suits.
Yeah, but then we see that this video essay is
in pink and green.
We do, but we see this video essay for Harvard where it's also with this montage of like her preparing for it, because then it's like, okay, cool. So we see that she like commands the attention of a room by like being the president of Delta Nu. She can recall hundreds of, you know, important facts, and then like Margot is just like on a pool floaty, and she's like, hey Elle, do you remember what happened on Days of Our Lives yesterday? Why, yes I do, Margot. And it's like so fun.
The beginning part of it's like the Charmin toilet paper, and they want to do generic. She was like, oh.
All in favor, you know, all opposed say aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
And then she's walking, and then she was like,
I'm comfortable with using legal jargon in everyday situations. Somebody wolf whistles, and she's like, I object. And then she just goes and like walks. It's so funny and stupid. Then we see her actually take her LSAT exam. Right. So we see that she's like there taking the LSAT, all that stuff. She's studied. Mm-hmm. And then all of this. And then we have all that. And then we get the end of her video essay. We get the end of it where we then are at Harvard with these admissions counselors and all that. And then it's weird because it's just like unless you go to Goucher College like I went to and you could do a video essay, generally you don't do video essays, but hey, why not? This is what she did. And she apparently had a Coppola like help do it for her, which is really funny. But anyway, so but like, well, she does have a 4.0 from, you know, wherever the hell and whatever in fashion merchandising. She like, obviously she's, you know, business pursuits or whatever. She was in a Ricky Martin video. Obviously she cares about music, you know, or whatever the hell they're talking about her. And then you're just like, Elle Woods, welcome to Harvard. Like they just decide, they're like, I guess we'll take her. Why not? Yeah. So then I believe we then get the whole thing of like her getting her acceptance. Mm-hmm. So like the stuff comes there. Or actually, no, sorry, we're so stupid. Oh my God. That was when she got her LSAT scores. That's what happened, is that she got her LSAT scores before that happened, I think. But yeah, so like, you know, they're all like excited about her LSAT scores because she got a 179, which is like literally almost impossible. But she, you know, worked really hard. But then we find out she actually got accepted to law school. So that's what happens with that. So yeah, and so this is what had happened. The law school accepts her, and then we go into like aerial shot of like her driving to Harvard, technically. Yeah. Which, by the way, okay, you're coming from California, you're going all the way to, if I'm not mistaken, Massachusetts or one of those places, Connecticut, wherever the hell Harvard is, apparently. You're driving all that fucking way, my guy, like my girl, like really? That's a long ass way, my guy, with a dog, like really? Right. Anyway, I was like, damn, okay, girl, good for you. But anyway, so she's driving over to Harvard, and she's, you know, coming to the East Coast.
Okay, I just remember two of my And they actually will play in two together when I do my little tidbits, because I just remembered it. And the other part is coming up because she's driving into Harvard. Right. Yeah. So you see a moving truck. Well, you see her. No, you see her driving.
And the moving truck's behind her.
And the moving truck's behind her. So then you see, it's kind of funny when you think about it, because, California you think is bright and colorful and what have you. Yeah. And then, you get to Harvard. And it's all like, it's not dreary or anything like that, but it's definitely like darker looking. Right. Like everybody's wearing gray, black, brown, tan, like very just like.
Well, it's in Massachusetts.
Right. So it's it's definitely not like she's kind of like a fish out of water.
Yeah, she's out of her element. Yeah,
out of her element. Like she comes in and she has like all this stuff and then she's in this pink. So anyway, two things. So I just saw this in the trivia and I was like, wow. So it says when she's arriving for the first time at Harvard in her hot pink outfit and convertible, somebody condescendingly refers to her as, "Hey, Malibu, oh look, it's Malibu Barbie." And as she steps onto the campus. And it says Mattel, who created
Barbie,
later released a promotional, which I didn't know this, released a promotional Legally Blonde themed Barbie doll for the release of the second Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde, which came out 2 years later, 2003, which is 20 years from now.
Yeah, I know.
Or 20 years
insane.
Ago. This movie is off. Oh, sorry. This movie is also often referred to by fans and audiences as an unofficial live-action adaptation of Barbie as well, which I've never thought of it like that. But there is actually a Barbie, literally a Barbie live-action movie that's being made with Margot Robbie,
with Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting. Anyway, so I just thought that was funny how I didn't know about this Barbie thing that came out. And then the other thing I was wanting to say, which actually kind of ties into it, because there's kind of a little scene in it. The singer Ariana Grande did this. It wasn't just on this one.
But Thank You Next.
Thank You Next was her song that came out, which is
it's a really good song.
It's an earworm. I mean, it's good. It came out a couple years ago, and so the song came out, and then a music video came out later. And she parodies
homages,
parodies. I guess homages. These
teen movies
that
Mean Girls, 13 Going on 30.
This one,
Legally Blonde, something like that.
Anyway, it's good. Like I absolutely love it. Like when I saw that, I was like, this is like such a good video. Like I absolutely love it. But anyway, why I said that is because there's a part where it comes on a little bit later on in the movie, like we're almost there, but I say it because of her showing up. She's on like a lawn chair and like where the football field is, or like the sports field is, and she's like wearing her sunglasses, and so Elle does that in this movie, and then Ariana Grande pays homage to it, and she does like the same thing, and you're like, hey. And the other thing she does, I thought I knew I was missing it. She does a part where she's doing the treadmill.
Oh yeah.
And it's also she's like she's singing the song, and then she's singing part of the song in the music video, and she's running on the treadmill, and that's like another thing.
So funny.
So it's
because Ariana Grande is like my age, so like you know very much she grew up with these movies, just like any other girl does.
Yeah.
So funny. But yeah, so she's at Harvard. It's all really cute and wonderful. Love it. Such a fan. I'm trying to find out what else she would have like.
I thought there was one other thing in there that I can't remember, but that is so good. That's the Legally Blonde, because when that came out, I was like, oh my god, these are like all these. I love all these movies she's referencing in this.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the actual like video or whatever, but I'm so surprised I can't find it. Or wait, no, sorry, it's the literal Thank You Next music video. Wait. This is important for the pod, I promise. Bring It On. She does Bring It On there too.
That's what it was. Okay, I remember.
She does. It says the cult classics Bring It On.
She has that one. She has that one. Miranda Sings.
Oh yeah, Miranda Sings. Colleen Ballinger.
She was pregnant in it, and in that video. And I remember that part. Yes, Bring It On. Okay,
very good.
That was going to bother me.
Very funny, and also like Jonathan Bennett, his gay self is in it. So
because don't they do like the toothbrush scene?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. So, shout out to that.
Shout out to Ariana Grande. Come on the show. Anyway, so they're at Harvard, and so she goes up to like everyone's looking at her all weird, and because
she's like, she's like, Bruce, you look parched, and she takes this little,
it gives her
mini pool looking like
Dog bowl.
Dog bowl, but it's like a, what do you call those?
Like an inflatable pool or
Inflatable
something.
dog bowl. And she puts Evian.
Evian.
She
which
puts
is
in a
nice
little
spelled
water.
backwards. Anyway, shout out to Reality Bites. But anyway, so that she goes in, and you see that she's nice to everybody. We'll get to just how she's nice to literally everybody.
Yeah.
But anyway, so everyone's looking at her a little weird. She then goes to check in for orientation, where she is talking to the guy who's doing it. And, you know, how like, oh, my social events calendar is missing. And she's just like...
And he's just like looking at her
wait, what?
Okay.
You know, all this, be like, well, maybe you need to check with the, you know, activities director on the Lido deck or whatever, because he's just like, dude, I'm just like a law student, like I don't care. But anyway, so she's asking like, did
Warner
Huntington
the third,
did he check in yet? And he's like, no, you know, maybe you should check with the cruise director on the Lido deck or whatever. She's just like, okay, or whatever. So, you know, East Coast people are maybe have a little more of an edge than she's used to. I don't know. But then we get our intro to our little orientation group. So, which is led by undisclosed dude. He doesn't have a name, but he is the same guy who is Aaron from Bring It On, who is now, I since think Seth's passed away, but he plays that in an uncredited role.
Is he the guy that's like, this is our group, and he's talking?
Yeah, like he's the one where like they're on the grass and they're doing their little intros, and he's the one who is like introing all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
So then we meet David Kidney, played by Alice Perkins, who says he has a PhD. He was deworming kids in Somalia or whatever the hell. We then have Enid Wexler, played by Meredith Scott Lynn, who apparently was like friends with like Jennifer Aniston back in the day and like all that. She is Enid Wexler. She's very coded as queer. She literally says she did single-handedly spearhead the campaign for lesbians against drunk driving. I love that. She has a PhD in women's studies focused on the history of combat. And we have some guy, I don't remember his name. He is just some douchebag who said that it's stated or it's something
about Stephen Hawking.
It's something about Stephen Hawking, how like Stephen Hawking took his like theories from time or whatever. He got it from his 4th grade paper. Just some asshole thing. Pretentious. And then Elle Woods does hers. She's like, this is, you know, I'm Elle Woods and this is Bruiser Woods. And, you know, I have a bachelor's degree in fashion and merchandising.
She's like, we're both Gemini vegetarians.
Love that. I'm not a vegetarian, but I'm a Gemini too. Hey, girl. And she's actually not a veg. Also, happy early birthday to Reese Witherspoon.
Yes.
This was supposed to come out on the 22nd.
Which is her birthday.
Which is her birthday.
March 22nd.
It was supposed to, but oops, I didn't realize it. I made a mistake, so it's going to come out a week before. But happy early birthday, Reese. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so... yeah, but she's just like being all nice. She says that she saw Cameron Diaz at Fred Siegel and she talked her out of getting a Angora sweater. It's like so silly.
She was like, whoever said orange is the new pink is seriously deranged.
Seriously disturbed.
Oh, seriously disturbed. Sorry.
Something like that, yeah. Anyway, so then we have Elle, who is getting ready for her first day of class next. So that's the interesting thing I think about this movie is that Elle is so about looks. So she's very much about like her looks, looking good. She wants to look good for her date. She wants to just appear, you know, on the outside, right? And even in this scene, it shows that she's like...
got her hair up.
Yeah.
She's got glasses on.
Mm-hmm. And her like little outfit or whatever. Yeah. So she wants to look like a serious law student, right? So that's what it is like... That's why I think she's a little itty bit similar to like maybe like Cher.
Yeah.
Because so much about like her... is about the look, right?
Yeah.
So she's walking through, and she's being nice to everybody. Everyone's looking at her weird, like there's no way she could have gotten in on her own, and she's like not even thinking about any of that. She's just like, hi, hey, you know, she's just being nice to everyone. She then sees Warner in the hallway. Mm-hmm. So she's like, okay, I gotta have my bad bitch moment. So then she walks past him, and he's just like, Elle? He's like, Elle? And she's like, oh, Warner, I forgot you go here. And he's like, are you here to see me? And she's like, no, I go here. He's like, you got into Harvard Law. And she's like, yeah, like it's hard.
What? Like it's hard?
Yeah. And so they have their little...
He's just like, okay.
Not thinking like, what the fuck? What the hell? Anyway, so then...
He's dumbfounded.
He's like dumbfounded. And she's like, I gotta get to class, but you know, like, we'll meet up after lunch, you know, after on the benches or whatever. So they go to, she goes to her first class where she has everyone, everyone's in there, and we get our intro to Professor Stromwell, played by Holland Taylor, and she is doing she's introing this class where she has this quote, the law is reason free from whatever the hell, I don't remember what it was.
Which I also have noticed that, like, you see everybody with laptops, and then you see Elle, like...
with her little notepad.
Just notepad, like, no laptop.
Yeah, no laptop. And so she's there, and Stromwell's there, and Stromwell is just, like, talking about all this. She has this quote on the board. She asks David, like, do you know who said this? And she was like, it's Aristotle. And she's like, will you be willing to bet your life on it? And he's like, I think so. And then she asks, are you willing to bet his life on it? And she, like, smacks the kid in the head
with the pen. And he was like, ow.
Ow. Be like, yes. And he's like, well, no, he says, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I would hope that, you should know before you say that.
Right.
Or whatever. And she's like, and it was Aristotle. So,
he's like, okay.
Okay, good. So then, everyone's passing around, like, where they're sitting and all that, because they're going to be sitting there the next 9 months. And so she comes up to Elle and is all like, so she talks about, like, okay, I'm assuming you all read page 1 to 45 and are now versed on subject matter jurisdiction. And then she's like, wait, what? And so then, like, Stromwell goes up to Elle and she's like, Miss Elle Woods. And she's like, hi. I actually wasn't aware that we had an assignment. And so then Stromwell says, Vivian Kensington, do you think it's reasonable that, Miss Woods is not prepared for class? And then Vivian, who's played by Selma Blair, she says, no, I don't. And then Stromwell says, like, do you support my decision in having her leave the class until she is prepared? And she says, yes, I do. And so she pretty much kicks her out of class because she isn't prepared, and she'd come back prepared. Which, Sarah did not go to college in particular. I went to college at least once. And I did have this happen in a class one time before. I was in a theater class, and it was like a drama literature class or whatever. And I remember I came there in the morning, and I had read the chapter we had to read. But because we were doing a theater show, other people in my class had not done the reading. It was a small class, too. Mm-hmm. It was like maybe 7 or 8 people. I went to small school, y'all. But anyway, so like we were in this class together for dramatic literature, and I remember my teacher, who was a PhD, really nice lady, I loved her, but like she literally kicked these kids out of class because they hadn't done the reading.
Really?
Yes, and it was me and like 2 other people in the class who had done the reading. We were just talking about it. She had kicked the other ones out because she literally was like, if you're not prepared, like, I can't have you in my class. Like, I'm sorry. So that did happen at least one time that I remember. Hopefully, if you weren't prepared, just fucking sit in the back and like try whatever. Anyway. So then Elle is like heartbroken, and she's like, gone out to like the benches where she was going to meet Warner, and she comes across Emmett. Emmett's just sitting there, and he's played by Luke Wilson, and, she's just like, ugh. She's like, do they just, like, put you on the spot all the time? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, you have Stromwell, don't you? Like, he literally says, he's like, yeah, sometimes that happens. And she's like, he's pretty much telling her, like, with Stromwell, like, do the reading, like, da-da-da-da, all this. And he's like, who else do you have? She's like, I have Callahan, this guy, and this guy. Be like, hey, Callahan, speak up in class. Like, he likes people who are engaged. With this guy, get a seat in the back because he tends to like spit when he talks about this. And this guy, use the footnotes because that's where he gets a lot of his exam questions from. And she's like, wow, I'm like really glad I got to meet you. And it's like really nice because it's somebody else who's nice because everyone else has been a dick to her.
Right.
So.
And then Warner comes.
And then Warner comes, and he's like, "How was your first class, hun?" And be like, "Oh, it was good, except this horrible preppy girl like tried to make me look bad in front of the professor. But now you're here, how are you doing?" And so then, guess what? That horrible preppy girl comes right up to Warner because we find out that this is actually now his new fiance, Vivian Kensington the third, or whatever the fuck. And so they had dated in prep school, and they got back together for the grandmother's birthday, which means technically whenever, like, fucking his grandma was in town or whatever, he must have already had known that. That's why he broke up with her. So I was like,
you see her come up to him, and then she has, like, the 6-carat Harry Winston on her hand.
And she's just like, I'm sorry, I just hallucinated. Wait, what?
I'm sorry. She was like, I'm sorry, I just hallucinated. What?
It's so good. Okay, so then, oh my god, Ella's just, like, broken and heartbroken. And so she has to drive her Porsche just through the street. And so then she's just, like, crying. And then she finds that the one place she can go to is the nail salon. So she, like, does a U-turn real quick. And then she parks on the street. And then I love how we also see, like, the aftermath of whatever the fuck she just caused. And so then she, like, goes in and she goes up to the open seat of our girl Paulette Bonafonte, played by the one and only Jennifer Coolidge. White Lotus, American Pie.
Yep.
Everything. Love her. God, I'm so happy for her that she's... I need to watch White Lotus, I know, but I will. Yeah. But anyway, so... She goes up and she's all like, it's an emergency. And she's like,
free.
Bad day. So you can't even imagine. And so she talks about pretty much how, like, I just wish I never went to law school. And, she talks about, like, what's been going on. And you can only imagine the, like, Paulette's just like, yeah, is it hard being in law school? Oh, is that hard that you get to go to, like, be in law school and be all privileged? That's great. Well, she's just, like, a townie who's, like, in Massachusetts. And so, like, you have that. And so she talks about how, like, I was with my guy 8 years. And, then one day it's just move out, and he followed his pecker onto greener pastures and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah. So, talking a little bit about, you have anything to add to that?
So she's like, so she's saying that. She's like, oh, I'm with my guy this long. And then he does that. And she was like, and he took my... And then he has my poor baby Rufus, which is like this... Is it bulldog?
It's a pit bull, I think.
No, it's a bulldog.
It's a bulldog, yeah.
It's not a pit bull, yeah. And she's just like, oh, she's like, no. So Elle's got, like, her hand, like, in the dish or whatever. And then she was like, he's got this new girl, Vivian Kennedy, and she was like, she called me out in class. She's just so rude. And she was like, well, is she as pretty as you? And
she said she could use some serious highlights and whatever.
She was like, she's not completely unfortunate looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Which me and Barbie say a lot for some things, which is funny. But anyway, so she was like, well, like after Paulette was talking about, like, being dumped or whatever, she was like, all I got is stretch marks and a fat ass.
Yeah, all I got is stretch marks and a fat ass.
Fat ass. So she's like, yeah, she's not completely unfortunate looking. As, she's like going to do her, while she's sitting there talking to her. Like, her personality is not nice and not pretty, but, whatever. So then in walks the UPS guy.
Yes, Bruce Thomas. Yeah.
Yeah, in the or is it UPS or FedEx?
It's like UPS guy.
Well, yeah, I think FedEx he's in Brown, so UPS. So he walks in, he was like,
Morning, ladies.
Morning, ladies. And he's, like, dropping off something, and then he, like, says hi to her or something like that. And she's like, and she's, like, smiling, like, all, like, funny, like, all excitedly. It just was funny, like...
It's just funny, yeah. But then she's all like, well, if you can't keep a guy, then there's no hope for the rest of us. Right. But you know what? Steal the bastard back.
She's like, steal the bastard back.
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like, okay.
I also like how she says, like, what has this Vivian got that you don't have? 3 tits? Or, it's just so funny. But this is pretty much where we get the idea that, like, okay, I guess I'm going to, like, steal him back or whatever. Now, you're going to have to help me remember what happens exactly after this. Because I don't completely remember, but, like... Okay, so she leaves the nail salon, obviously. Right. She finishes up there.
Yeah.
I would think she then goes back to her room, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. She goes back to school. And if I'm not mistaken, after she gets her nails done, she goes back to her school. And if I'm not mistaken, she goes, after getting a shower or whatever, she then comes back into her room and she either calls or gets a call from her friends back home.
I think she calls them.
I think she calls them.
Because she has her, like, furry little pink phone. Like, that's cute.
Exactly, yes. And so we find out that Margot's getting married. Apparently, that's what they're doing when they call her. And then... I don't know what Serena's doing. They find out something about her or whatever as well. But they're asking, like, how's it going? Like, did you get Warner back yet?
I got bangs.
Oh, yeah, you got bangs. Yeah, that's what it was. And so, like, it's so now. And so then they're asking, like, did you get the ring yet? And she's like, oh, almost. And she's like,
but really, she's like...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not good. Like, law school's not good. Warner's
Yeah.
not good. Vivian's not like.
It's all bad.
Everything's bad.
Yeah, but she's not telling anybody that.
Yeah.
So then, she's doing that after she has her nice
and
little
her door's like
Paulette.
semi kind of open, so she can hear.
So then she finds out. So then we see that Vivian and her friend, I don't know who her friend's played by, but her friend's there, and they're inviting these guys out to this party. Now we're to assume, I don't know when this is, maybe October-ish, fall-ish, if you will. Because then, anyway, so, she's like, is somebody here actually having a party? And she sees it's Vivian, and she's just like, yeah, but, it's a costume party. You probably wouldn't want to go. And then Elle's just like, I love costume parties. And she's like, oh, well, then we'll see you there right then. Oh, here's the address, and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like there's a part in there, not so much we missed the part, but I think when she got into law school, she was trying to fit in, and she wanted to join their group.
Oh, yes. Either this happens before that, so we might have also missed that a little bit, but there is a point where, at the library, she brings them sustenance, brings them bread, and of course Vivian's like, we're already
she's
full.
Like, can I join your study group? She's like, no.
Yeah. But this is also just showing that, like, she's being nice to everybody, because she's just like, oh,
and Warner's
I guess I'll go.
He's like, no.
She's like, oh, I guess I'll go then. And then Enid with her group, she's like, maybe there's like a thing you can do, like, making fun of her a little bit. Yeah. She's like, you know what, if you at least came to a rush, I would have at least talked to you.
Right.
And then
I think I was just like in the part where she's just like being like...
Yeah, no, I think it maybe came before this, but
everyone's just not being nice to her.
Everyone's not being nice to her and like all this. But yeah, you're right. This happens before the whole costume party, because the costume party's a thing.
And then Emmett is like the only nice one. It's like
the only nice one. But Enid even's like, is that before you would like vote me out and then call me a D word behind my back? Right. And she's like, I don't use that language. You must have heard that from Vivian.
Ooh,
so like,
Vivian's like,
she's just like being nice to everyone.
Right.
And yeah, anyway. So there's
back
that. Back to the party.
Back to the party.
Yeah, back to the party. So she like, gets invited.
A party? And then she was like, yeah. She was like, it's a costume party.
Yeah. And so
her friend gives her a look like,
she loves costume parties. Yeah. And so then...
So she gives her the address.
Yeah, gives her the address. She comes to the party. We see her. She's in this bunny outfit. Playboy bunny outfit, pretty much. And so she walks up to this, and you see her going in the party. It's just like a normal-ass party. They're playing foosball. They're drinking, like, some champagne or whatever the hell. And then... she realizes that, like, oh, nobody else is in costume. But she smiles, and she's just like, hey. Like, again, she makes the best out of everything. And so you have this, and then she walks right up to Vivian and her friend, and she's like, thanks for inviting me, girls. This party is super fun. And so then she, like, Vivian spits out her champagne or whatever. She's like, nice outfit. And she's like, oh, I like yours too. Except when I dress as a frigid bitch, I try not to look so constipated.
Yeah.
So good. So good. And also, honestly, like, I'm dressed appropriately, bitch. I don't know what you squares are doing. Like, what the fuck?
Right. And then Warner is in there. Like, I think Warner is talking.
Warning is talking to Enid about something earlier we talked about, how, like, Enid's all about, like, trying to change the term from semester and to the winter ovester. Yeah. Which, as we mentioned earlier, that was something that literally Amanda Brown, who wrote the book, apparently had happen at Stanford from one of her, like, very uber feminist, like, or one of her classmates. But anyway, so they're talking, and, so Ellen and him are now talking or whatever. So they're talking. It's
funny because he's like what something happens because he's saying
something about, like, oh, I have these case studies and these whatever the hell.
Yeah, but like he's also like admiring that, like, she looks really cute.
She looks really cute.
And he's like got his hands on her, like he's got like his hands on her hips. I'm like, ma'am, you are ma'am. I'm like, sir, you are engaged.
Yeah, exactly. But so he's this piece of shit. And so anyway, we do see, like, Elle is all like, yeah, I can't imagine, like, doing all this and doing Callahan's internship next month or next year. And then he says, he's like, oh, like, you won't have the grades to qualify for that. You're just not smart enough, sweetie. And this is where fucking misogynist, by the way. Fuck him. Like, literally because she even calls him out. She even says, like, I'm sorry, am I on glue? Like, are we not going to the same school? Are we not doing the same classes? Like, are you kidding me? Right. Like, we're literally in Callahan's class. We might have seen a scene with Callahan's class at some point or something. I don't remember. Yeah. But we see Callahan played by Victor Garber. Oh, wait a minute. That was another thing before the costume party. We had a scene there where they're in Professor Callahan's class. They're all there together. And this is where he asks, like, Miss Woods, would you rather have a client who is whatever, whatever, or whatever, whatever? And she's like, neither. I'd rather have one that is innocent. And everyone laughs at her, even though I think that's a good answer. But the one is like, Vivian answers, and she's like, I'd rather have this because, this would be a regulatory infraction as opposed to a violent crime.
Right.
And then Elle's all like, actually, I changed my answer. I want the dangerous one because I'm not afraid of a challenge. Yeah. Because this is stealing the bastard back. But anyway, so we get to this.
But also, like, fuck you guys for being
Also, fuck you guys. And so this is the turning point, I think, for kind of like how Cher has her turning point where she realizes, like, I'm totally clueless. Right. This is her turning point where, like, Elle is just like, I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I? And it's all of this, and that's what I love about this movie, is that it literally, everything before this is like, her looking, trying to be the best. She's like, I want to look like a serious law student. I'm trying to look good for this person. It's all about the looks and like all that. And even though you are smart, like it's all about this. And when it really just comes out with the fact that this ex-boyfriend of yours is saying, oh, you're never going to get that. You're not smart enough, sweetie. And she's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Like, I'm never going to be good enough for you, am I?
Like, what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah. Like, are you kidding me? And she even said, she's like, I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods is.
And then she goes to the store and buys
her laptop.
The Apple Clear laptop.
The clamshell book. Yeah, the clamshell book.
I didn't know that's what it was called, but let me tell you, when we had our regular computers, like not the laptops, I always wanted one of those clear ones.
I know.
We never had one, but...
Yeah, we were poor. But anyway, pretty much. We didn't have a lot of money. But yeah, no, totally.
But I would have loved that one.
Oh my God. And having a Mac, I guess, is alright too. But they did bring those back at some point where they kind of updated them a little bit. I'd probably get one, to be honest. Yeah. But anyway, so she buys her laptop because she's like, you know what? I'm going to be fucking serious now, bitch. And
you see that Emmett...
Yeah, Emmett's behind her at the... I think it's the Harvard, like, bookstore or whatever.
And he was like...
Okay. Like, don't ask. Wasn't going to.
Yeah.
So now you have this little kind of... It's not a montage, really, but, like, you have, like, oh, I guess she's being serious now. Like, good for her.
Oh, yeah, you see her, like... So you see after that
with her
part,
books.
Yeah, you see after that part, she's like, after, like, Warner said that to her, and after, like, this party situation, she's like, fuck this. So you see her walking with, like, 4 or 5 books in her hand. 4 or 5 books.
She's writing on her little laptop.
Yep.
She's, like, studying while doing, like, her exercise, where we see the Yo Quiero Taco Bell commercial, which was an actual commercial. And she's
all
like
that. Actually taking it seriously, and not just because she wants to get Warner back.
No, she's taking it seriously because she's like, I'm already going to be in enough debt, I guess.
She was like, and I'm in law school. So.
I'm in law school, so I might as well make the most of it. Right. And then you see like she's trying to get a book off of like the top shelf, and David helps her, which is like really nice.
He's tall,
because he's tall.
Like, thank you.
Yeah, like it's really cool.
So he shows her compassion, like he
does.
He wasn't a jerk to her.
Yeah, so you have all of this where you're showing that like she's being serious. I think this might be the scene where you have Stromwell's asking her a question and is all like, Miss Woods like blah blah blah, and she's like, "Don't you need evidence that your claim needs evidentiary support?" And even Stromwell's like, "Oh, okay, you're getting it. Like, I got you.
Like, all right, I know I was mean to you, but..."
Yeah, or like, and then Callan has asked something about like, something, and then she raises her hand, she's like, "To negate mens rea," or whatever. Like, you see this little montage of like, she's trying to take herself seriously. Yeah. We then get to the point where she and Paulette decide to try to get... Because at some point it was like Christmas, and they have like, they're in the nail salon and they like just start drinking Diet Cokes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun. But at some point, I think it's might have been after, but before that perhaps, I think there's the scene where they go over to the trailer to go and then take Rufus back, the dog. So they go up and, now please, if you're a law student, do not do this because you are not supposed to act as a lawyer when you are a law student. But then pretty much what happens is that Paulette obviously only has so much confidence in herself. That's why she can't talk to like the UPS guy. There might also be a scene before this, like where the UPS guy comes back and gives her something. And whatever. I think this comes before the bend and snap, actually. I think it's a little bit before that. You do see that Paulette only has so much self-confidence, I guess, because she was in kind of like an abusive, like kind of emotionally abusive relationship, I guess.
Right.
And so she goes back and she knocks on the door and she's all like, he's like, "What the hell do you want?" So this is Dewey or whatever.
Her ex.
Putting Dewey's name out there, excuse me, like Dewey Riley is a saint from Scream. But anyway, so but Dewey
she's really soft-spoken when she's talking.
Yeah, she's really soft-spoken, and she's like, you can tell who's the aggressor in that relationship. So she's just like, she's very soft spoken, but then Elle's just kind of like, Dewey Newcomb, and she's like pretty much saying like, I'm Elle Woods, like Mrs. Bonafonte's attorney, and she's pretty much using a bunch of legal jargon that doesn't make sense in this context.
But he's not going to know.
He's not going to know, though. So be like, you and them were in a common law marriage, which was a thing at some point. It's still a thing sometimes, where if you were with someone long enough, like, you don't have to actually get married, you get common law married. But anyway, so, like, and you need equitable division of the assets, which is a real term, and all this kind of stuff and whatever. But then she's like, she's taking canine ownership right now. And she's like, what does that mean? And then, of course, she says the iconic line of, I'm taking the dog, dumbass, which I think you had in your notes.
Yeah, I'm taking the dog, dumbass.
But this is just something to show that, like, okay, yeah, don't do this if you're a law student. Yeah. But what it's showing, and this is also a movie, but, like, also it's showing that, like, Elle is learning this stuff that is able to help out Paulette in this way. Yeah. And that's really nice for her to be able to do that, which is great.
Right. Like women helping women.
Yeah.
And this is something that, because the other thing that's going to come up soon, but I think this is a scene before, this is showing that she's taking her stuff seriously.
Yeah.
With Callahan. Well, not with Callahan. With Callahan, they're talking about the...
Oh, also, I think at some point, isn't it that they have this whole scene, and then she applies for the internship, right? Is that what you're going to talk about?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because there's this one scene.
Maybe it's like after she does this. So
I think it's after she does this thing with Paulette. They're in class.
They're in the class, and Vivian and Warner sit next to each other, and Elle's behind them, and they're talking about.
They're talking about a specific situation of like a sperm donor who wants to get custody or wants to have visitation rights, and then Warner's talking about whatever.
Yeah.
And he's all like, blah, blah, blah. So he's done talking, and he's like, oh, you're thinking like a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. But then Elle is all like, even though Mr. Huntington makes a good point, she talks about like, well, why is it this sperm? Like, what is so special about this sperm? Blah, blah, blah. She's making some other good points. She then talks about how, like, every masturbatory effort would have been considered reckless abandonment, all this kind of stuff. But she's showing to her teacher that she's really thinking, and that she's thinking like a lawyer, and that she's trying to do this. And this is where we get the scene.
Right. And that's when he's like, and you just won your case.
And you just won your case, yeah. And so then after class, they're leaving. He's like, hey, Elle, you did good today. Like, were you thinking of doing my internship? And she's like, oh, I don't know, maybe. And she's like, he's like, you should. Why not? Do you have a resume? And he's like, oh, yeah. She's like, oh, yeah, I do. And so she brings it out. It's pink and it smells nice. Scented. And then she like leaves and whatever. And then Emmett is in the class too. Yeah. And so we'll find out about him in a little bit. But like they come there and, Callahan's like, do you think she just woke up one day and was just like, I'm just going to go to law school? And Emmett's like, well, even with that though, like she is really good, and like I think you need to like, he's standing up for her, which is really nice. Yeah. So this is her applying for the internship, I guess, really.
Or I guess she does apply somewhere.
Somewhere within that, either that was part of it or whatever, because it's coming up in your notes that you have this thing of, everyone's crowded around this bulletin board. Remember bulletin boards, everybody? But anyway, so bulletin board where we find out, they're doing a murder trial, okay? And the murder trial is, the caseload's so big that he's taking on first-year interns, which would be them. And so, like, you see Elle's walking up, and...
She's like, what's going on?
She's like, well, what's going on? And then you hear Vivian say, oh, Warner, like, we got it. And so it's Vivian and Warner, then you have Enid, and then you have... It's only 4 people... And then you see Elwood's name on there, so she sees it. And she does the good line that it's in your notes right here. She just, like, looks and she walks and she just says, me! So good. She's just, like, saying, like, yup, bitch, I got this.
And then she's like, me! And then like, Warner and Vivian are, like, over, like, to the side a little bit. And then she's like, oh, Warner.
Yeah.
And then... he like looks over at her, like Vivian's like giving her like a stink eye, and she was like, "Do you remember when we
spent this 4 amazing hours?
4 amazing hours in the hot tub at Winter Forum or something like that?" And he was like, "He's like, yeah." He's like,
no.
He's like, yeah, no. And he's like, she was like, "This is so much better than that."
Exactly.
And then she was like, "Excuse me, I gotta go shopping." And then she like cuts in between them, and then Vivian like backs away, and she's like, 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Damn, girl, you have a good amount of stamina, I guess, dude. But anyway, so we have this. So then they did go shopping. I don't think we actually see them go shopping, but we do see that the next scene, I believe, is actually them going to Callahan's office. Mm-hmm. So they come in their respective, elevators. So like Elle comes up, and then Warner and Vivian are together. So Warner like walks past them, and Elle is like, "You look very nice today, Vivian," and she's like, "Thank you." And so they all just like walk into the
nice again.
Yes, being nice. And so like she's walking into the office, and so we find out about the murder trial. So we see that Callahan's in his office, and he has like the interns there and his normal staff. One of whom is played by Robert Silver, which for any fans of Friday the 13th, he's the guy in the final Friday who gets like cut the fuck down that middle by the machete or whatever while he's fucking someone in a tent. But anyway, so that's a whole thing. But he's one of the lawyers, which is kind of funny. But anyway, so we find out that the murder trial that they're doing is for Brooke Taylor Wyndham, who's played by Allie Larder. Mm-hmm. And pretty much, like, she's accused of killing her husband, Hayworth. Hayworth Wyndham. Sorry.
I had it written down, but I forgot.
Yeah, Hayworth Wyndham. And, like, she's accused of having shot him. And the only people who were, like, witnesses were, like, the daughter and, like, the pool boy and, like, whoever else, right? So, like, they're trying to figure out what's going on with that. I'm trying to remember exactly. All right, so pretty much, they are talking about Brooke Wyndham and how they're, going to be defending her for this murder trial. And so then Elle realizes that she knows Brooke. She's like, "Is that Brooke Taylor?" Because they tell her, like, oh, she's, like, rich on her own. Like, she has this
right, because they're like, empire. Is she a gold, like, did she kill him for the money? And she's like, no, actually, she made money on her own.
Yeah, so then she's like, oh, is that Brooke Taylor? Like, I took her class in LA. Like, she's amazing. Like, she can make you lose 3 pounds in, like, a class or whatever.
Yeah, she's like a fitness instructor.
Yeah, she's like a fitness instructor. So then we end up going to the actual prison to go visit Brooke to kind of, get what we need to from her for her case and everything. So we end up there. And then they're like, hey, this guy's like way older than you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it happens beforehand.
Well, I think when they're talking about her before they go see her, like, she's a fitness instructor. She was like, exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't kill their husbands.
They do say that at some point, yes. Yeah.
They just don't.
But they do end up at the prison at some point.
Then I think after that they go there.
After they go there, they're all like, well, he's way older than you. That doesn't look very good. And she's like, well, show him a picture of his dick or something. Like, I'm like, that's why I was with him.
Yeah.
So then, it's one of the reasons. So, like, anyway, she's like, hey, like, I guess for what I'm paying you, like, I'm hoping you can help me. So then, they're all leaving. And then she, Brooke's all like, hey, I know you. She's like, you took my class in LA, right? You have the best high kick I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She's like, well, at least one of you has some brains,
She's like, thank God one of you has a brain.
Yeah, exactly. So, she's like, hey, I'll do what I can to help you out, I guess. So then at this point, so they went to the prison and all that kind of stuff. Then I believe at some point.
They're at the nail salon.
And yeah, they end up back at the nail salon. And so then we see, this is our other iconic scene of this movie where we see the UPS guy's back and he's like dropping off a package to Paulette. And she makes, like, she's just really awkward around him. She can't even talk to him at the time or whatever. And then he's like, so he's like coming up to her and she's like, I have a package. And then Elle's just like, he's got a package.
And he tries to get Paulette to sign for it, and she just, like, doesn't do anything. And then...
While his crotch is just literally right in the frame, which is really funny. But anyway, so then
as you say, he's got a package.
Yeah, exactly. Elle is, like, signing off on it. And she's just like, great, Paulette. Was like that the only like interaction you've had? And she's like, no, sometimes I say doing good, or like sometimes I do this instead.
No, she was like, I'm okay.
She says, I'm okay.
And then she's like, sometimes I say I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly, right. But then this is where Elle is like, I'm going to teach you a little something that my mom taught me in junior high.
Yeah.
And that it has like a return on the, getting a dinner date and all that kind of stuff and whatever. And she calls it the bend and snap. So this is something where she's like, oh, okay, I get up, I drop something. And so she does this bend down and then she snaps up where she puts her two hands, like, flourishing pretty much. So she's like, okay, Paulette, like, try it out. So, Paulette tries to do the bend and snap. And then, she's like, okay, a little bit too much snap. Then one of the other ladies in the salon is like this. And then she like does the snap or whatever. She's like, oh, that's a good snap. And so it just and turns up into this like musical number pretty much, where it's just everybody in the salon doing the bend and snap. Elle is leading all of it and all this stuff.
Like, good job.
Yeah, good job, everybody. And it just turns into this weird musical dance number, which is so funny. And so like the one lady, like the bigger black lady who was like doing the first thing, like she's just like dancing and like doing all this. It's so good. And then, you know, everyone is like doing the bend and snap. And then it comes to the end and the gayest guy is just like, oh my god, the bend and snap works every time.
It's so good.
Which is so good. And if you didn't already know, I told Sarah this offline. This musical number was actually choreographed by the one and only Toni Basil, who was the Mickey video. Mm-hmm. She did that. So she is she was a cheerleader back in the day. She's like choreographed a bunch of shit. So yeah, she did that, which is really, really good. Yeah. But yeah, so we had the bend and snap. So again, this is just teaching like all of that. What is the next thing we have on our list?
The next thing I believe is after that happens, then I believe that Elle goes and sees
Brooke
by herself.
She does. She goes and sees her, and so this is where we get
because I guess in one of the little scenes before this, it says that they need her alibi.
Yes, they do need her alibi, and this is before they visit her mom. Yeah. But so they are like, okay, I'm going to go get her alibi, and so she goes to give it to her. So like she brings her like a basket of stuff which you could not give to somebody.
Right. She was like a loofah, Cosmopolitan,
all
Bible.
Of this stuff, whatever. She's like, you got to get me out of here, Al. Like da da da. She's like, I will, but you know, I'll do my best. But we really need your alibi. And so Brooke is all like, I can't give you my alibi, you know, and so pretty much she's like, but we really need it. And she's just like, I've made my fortune on, you know, perfecting women's bodies. And she's like, I know, I went from a 6 to a 4. She's like, that's great. And then she's like, well, the day of Hayworth's murder, I was getting liposuction. And she's like, what? She's like, I was getting liposuction. And then she's like, huh? Liposuction! She's like, oh my god. And she's just like, I know, I'm a fraud. It's not like normal women can have this ass. And so she's just like, I would rather go to prison than lose my reputation.
Right.
And she's like, Brooke, your sacred is safe with me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she finds out what it was so that she does have an alibi that she didn't kill her husband. She wasn't there. So she comes back to, after this whole thing, she comes back to the law office and everyone's there and everything. Yeah. And so then Callahan finds out, like, you know, oh, from like the prison communique, Brooke Wyndham was seen by a sister of hers, one Delta Nu.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like, she's okay, like, I did go to see her. Yeah. I did go see her. I was trying to get her alibi. And she was like, oh, it's a good one. It's juicy. And he's like, okay, great. What is it? And she's like, oh, no, I can't tell you. I was sworn to secrecy. But I can tell you that she didn't do it. And she's just like, screw this, da-da-da-da, whatever. Oh, also in this, when we come back to there, we see that Callahan either has already before or in the scene at the law firm, he asks Vivian to get him some coffee. You hear that.
Yeah.
And you see how Vivian kind of reacts to that. She's like, wait, what? Like, huh? And that comes into the later as well. So then, you know, Callahan's just like, someone talk some sense into her, like, while we do this, blah, blah, blah. And because Mrs. Vandermark Wyndham or whatever the fuck is on the other line, so he's going to go talk to her because somebody has to go talk to her, who's the mom of Brooke.
No, mom of Chutney.
The mom of Chutney and like the ex-wife pretty much of
the
Hayworth.
first wife, yeah.
Right. So anyway, so they're talking and then people are like, if you know the alibi, why don't you just say it? Like, even Emmett's like, he'll probably hire on as a summer associate. And she's like, I gave her my word, Warner. And he's like, who cares? Like, don't even, you know, you gotta look out for yourself.
Like Warner, and then Vivian's like,
Vivian really? Even looks, she's like, wait, what? Like,
she's like, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Yeah. She doesn't say anything, but you just see it in her face. You're just like, okay. Mm-hmm. So then in this case, we see that Emmett is gonna go.
Oh, because then they're saying that, they're saying that
she forgot about
the
interview and she's at the spa.
Yeah, she's like, oh, well, that's right up your alley.
Exactly. So they're like, why don't we go take you? So Emmett, so she's like, I'll go if you want. And then he's like, Emmett, please go take her.
Yeah.
I don't want her going into a prison again. Okay, please. So we see that, you know, Emmett and Elle, they go off and they're driving. They have their cute little moment of like, I can't believe you haven't told the alibi to him. And he's just like, it's not my alibi to tell while they're driving.
And she calls him a butthead.
Calls him a butthead.
And he's like, well.
I haven't been called a butthead since like the 5th grade or whatever. Yeah. She's like, well, maybe not to your face. It's just like really funny.
So you see like a cute little
interaction. There, yeah. So then they end up at the spa, and we see that
he's like, oh wow, this is what a spa looks like. This is
what a spa looks like. I call ahead, she's in the mud room. Like she's expecting us. So then we have our intro to Mrs. Wyndham Vandermark, played by the one and only Raquel Welch. Rest in peace. She just recently passed away. Love her. She, of course, is like the beauty upon beauty. I mean, just so iconic. She's in this. And so she has like the cucumbers over her eyes and she's like wrapped up in shit. She's like, hi, Ella's like, hi, we're from, this law firm or whatever. We're here to ask you some questions. And so this is like, the ex-wife saying like, well, from what my daughter has told me, like, she could be a real bitch and that her and Hayworth would like, screw like jackrabbits or whatever the hell. And she's like, well, the Cabana Boy, and all this. So they have this like interaction where she's finding out some questions from them, but she's just like, oh, she's full of crap. Like really like, trying to say like, oh, Brooke was having an affair and like all this stuff. And she's just like, she's full of it. Like all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But we do get that nice little cameo from Raquel Welch because that's like the one part she's in. She is in the courtroom scene later, but like, you have that. Anyway, so, you have this, but they are, they leave the spa and then they're, getting in the car and driving back. So he then drives her back to school, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So then, you see that this is completely voiceovered. Like, it's probably not happening right on set because you don't actually see them talk to each other. It's like literally then driving up to the school. So all of what they're saying to each other is not actually on set. I think it's 80 yard in, honestly. Anyway, so he drops her off and she's talking about like, well, I'm discriminated against as a blonde, and whatever the hell, but he drops her off. So Emmett drops her off at school. We have the little line of like, what do you think I'd be like as a blonde? And she's like, I don't think you could handle it personally. And people want to say that that's like a little kind of nod to the fact that Luke Wilson is Owen Wilson's brother. Whatever. I don't really think it is, but whatever. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Elle's walking back to school. She's walking back to her room and she sees David is trying to like go, he's asking a girl out and the girl's pretty much rejecting him. So she's like, you know what? Let me do a little something. He helped me get that book. He's been nice to me. Let me do a little something for him.
Right.
So then she does is she goes up to him and she's like, why haven't you called me? And he's just like, what? And she's talking about like, you took me out. You gave me all this great stuff and you gave me the best night of pleasure and you just never called. And he's just like, I'm sorry? Like, sorry isn't enough for doing blah, 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 blah. And so she's being nice to David because he's been nice to her.
Right.
And it's just a kind of nice thing
so
where
this girl
is now like,
doesn't have anything to do with him.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, oh, so hey, when did you want to go out? And it's just nice that she's doing something to help someone else, which is really, really good. So that she goes back. I think this is the scene, if I'm not mistaken, where Elle is looking through some depositions in her room, if I'm not mistaken. So she's going through that. She's doing that. Vivian comes to her room because they obviously live in the same building, I guess. And she's like, hey, are you done with those depots? She's just like, yeah, I've run it like 20 times, like all this stuff.
Right.
And this is where her and Vivian get to have a nice little kind of...
like they're not catty. They're
not catty to each other.
Nice, yeah.
Because, Vivian's talking about like, have you ever noticed that like, Callahan always has me get his coffee for him? I've done it like 10 times for him. He never asked Emmett. And he's like, yeah, I know. Like, it's so weird. Be like, well, men, like they can't, they can't live in the world without us. And she's like, yeah, I know. And she talks about how like, Emmett still needs to get his, still doesn't do his laundry. He gets it sent out.
Emmett, Warner.
Or no, sorry, Warner. Warner gets his laundry sent out. And then Vivian talks about how like he got waitlisted when he first applied. And so, like, his dad had to make a call and everything. And she's like, no, are you kidding me? Well, you think, like, Elle got in on her first try.
Right.
So it's, like, one of these things where they get to have this kind of understanding of, like, hey, girl, I know it's, like, hard being a woman in this shit. And I can see you. And I want to just be nice to you. Right. I don't think you're a bitch anymore. I don't care the fact of this, that, and the other. Because, honestly... After my fiance said that shit about, this alibi, because she even says, she's like, I thought it was very classy of you not to disclose that alibi.
Right.
because, whatever. And again, it's just something that is so different. And I think that's why this is such a great female story, because it's like, yeah, it's hard being a woman in the law because it's such a male-dominated field. And there's more women in law now, of course, but it's still tough.
Mm-hmm. And then she lets her whole bruiser.
Yes, hold bruiser. Yeah. It's really nice, and it's nice.
Like, it's like you see like a kinship happening. Like,
yeah, a nice friendship, kinship type thing going on.
Happening after their first interaction was like. Yeah, not good.
Bad. And if you ever want to find out, I've listened or I've watched some of her videos, but Legia Miller on YouTube, she's a lawyer, and she has done some videos. She has talked about Legally Blonde before, how she likes the movie and everything. And she talks about being a woman in the law, being a real woman actually in the law. And so, yeah, no, that's so why this movie kind of resonates with people. It doesn't have to be law, but it can be other fields where you deal with and, things that are not traditionally female-centered jobs, it's a whole thing. But anyway, so we have that nice little scene.
And then I think the next thing is they're back in the courtroom. And
are we at the courtroom scene yet?
Well, I don't think there's anything between that. I think they go to they do that, and then I think the next thing is they're going to
the court for the beginning of the trial.
Yeah, because they have to cross-examine Enrique.
Exactly. So that's what happens, and then somewhere in the middle of this, we do have the scene with Paulette at the nail salon. I think it might be happening after this, but there is a scene that comes up with her. But yeah, we do start the actual trial. So they're cross-examining Enrique, who's played by Greg.
Oh, when he comes to see her?
Yeah, when he comes to see her. So we have Greg Serrano playing Enrique. He's talking about how, like, this is the questioning of him. He's talking about how, like, oh, that's my uniform that I wear. Like, they have this little blue thong or whatever. That's, like my little,
right,
my outfit uniform, yeah. And all this, and be like pretty much saying like, hey, like, she was out at the pool like topless or whatever. And she's just like, like they're trying to paint as like, oh, he must be like having an affair with her. He's like had a romantic relationship, blah, blah, blah. That's pretty much what's happening here. And but she's just like, no, you're fucking lying, dude. Right. Like, but they, have this kind of thing. So then we have our good old judge, Marina R. Bickford, played by Francesca Roberts. Mm-hmm. So we have her. She's like the main judge. And so they're cross-examining her as well. So it's like the DA who's actually doing it at first, because she's the one asking questions of like, have you had sexual relations with her? And all this kind of stuff. And so then they're like, God, Jesus. Be like, you gotta save me, Al. You gotta save me. And then she also talks about how she just likes watching him change the filter.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun. So then you have, I think this is what happens. So we have this part. And then we have the part with Paulette, with a UPS guy coming. Because, like, he comes, he's, like, giving her, he's going to have her sign this package or whatever. And then she realizes, like, oh, the bend and snap. Yeah. So she drops the pen he's giving her, and she's going to do the bend and snap, but then he is already about to like, oh, I'll get it. And he bends down, and then she like knocks into him by accident. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. Yes. And so then she's calling Elle to like say, oh no, you broke his nose. Be like, oh, it was horrible. Yeah. And all this. So then she's in line. So Elle is in line at the water fountain. So she's in line, and so she's like waiting for, in front of her is Enrique, and she's waiting for him to like, because he's taking a while at the water fountain, and she's tapping her foot on the floor, and so Enrique says, "Don't stomp your little last season Prada shoes at me, honey." And so he's just like, she's just like, these aren't last season, and then she's like, oh my gosh. And then she like runs back into the courtroom. She runs to her people and she's just like, you guys, he's gay. And then they're like, wait, what? What are you talking about?
All right. And she was like, Warner. She's like, what type of shoes are these? And he was like,
black ones.
Black ones.
Yeah.
And she's like, see? She was like,
gay men, no designers.
Gay men, no designers. Straight men don't.
Yeah, exactly. And then Brooke says, you know what? He did leave a share tape in the pool house one time. Which is very much that. Yeah. But yeah, so they're like, okay, I don't know what you guys are talking about, but like, I got a murder trial to attend to. Right. So they're like gonna cross-examine him. And so they're talking, and again, they're blah, 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 whatever. So Callahan's asking questions, but like he's not really getting anywhere with him, and all this. Mm-hmm. And then Emmett's like, "Let me do this."
Yeah.
So Emmett's going up, and he's like, "How long have you been with Mrs. Wyndham?" Blah blah blah. He's asking him some questions. He's like doing some rapid fire. He's like, have you ever taken Mrs. Wyndham out for a date? He's like, yes. Where'd you go? This place, and this place that nobody knew us. Mm-hmm. Be like, how long have you had an affair with Miss Wyndham? 3 months. And your boyfriend's name is Chuck. And he's like, okay, thanks, got it. And then he's like, oh, wait. And he's like, I just mean my friend Chuck. I mean my friend. And then this guy in the audience of the courtroom is like just saying, you bitch. And he just like storms out, which as a gay is very much that. He's gay, you bitch. It's so good. It's very accurate. But anyway, so we find out that he's actually gay, technically, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'd be like, so that just kind of puts him out as a suspect.
Yeah.
Before this, we did get our intro to Chutney. What a fucking name. Chutney, played by Linda Cardellini from, Scooby-Doo, Boy Meets World, Freaks and Geeks, all that shit. Mm-hmm. But she was talking a little bit before Enrique about just like, some baseline stuff. Like they had a little bit of her talking. Of like, obviously she doesn't really like Brooke very much and whatever, but we got a little bit of that, but then we got more of Enrique, really. So, okay, he's like knocked out as a particular suspect, and that's all fine and dandy. So then they go back to the law firm and they're all like, all right, cool. Like, this is good. So, they're kind of wrapping up for the night. And so Callahan's in his office. He comes, with, what's her name? With Elle. And so they're all leaving. So like, Vivian's leaving for the night, and then Elle and Callahan are talking in his office, and he's like, you did a really good job today. Like, you went with your instincts and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what were you thinking about your career goals and all that? And she's like, oh, I wasn't really knowing, blah, 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 whatever. And then pretty much you see the Callahan just being a creep. Yeah. And he pretty much is sexually harassing Elle. He's hitting on her. He puts his hand on her thigh, and Elle is just like, you are completely out of line.
Yeah, like, and as you see this, you see Vivian and her in the hall, and then Vivian's like got a bunch of files, and she was like, "Oh, do you need help with that?" She's like, "No," and then she's like, "Yeah, I'll see you soon," or whatever. And then that's when she goes to the office. And Vivian,
she sees it.
Like the doors slightly ajar, and it's so she can see in there. And then she just so happens when she's sitting there, and he literally puts his hand on her. Yeah. Nay, she sees that and she's like, "Oh, like so that's what's happening." Why, she kind of was being a bitch and
yeah. So then she's like, "You're completely out of line." Okay. This is when I realized, like, I thought you wanted to be a lawyer, and be like, "Oh, well, I just realized that my professor is like an asshole, pretty much." And so she storms off. This is what's called quid pro quo harassment, like where it's like a this for that kind of thing. So he's just out of line as a teacher as well.
Right, and she just walks out.
So anyway, she walks out, but she walks to the elevator. But then Vivian comes up, and she's just like, you had me fooled. Yeah. And so you're just like, oh, shit. Like, you totally don't know what just happened.
Right. Like, you saw something, but you definitely don't know the context.
Exactly. So, like, then she.
If you would have been there 5 minutes earlier.
Exactly. You would see what would head on. But anyway, so, like, but it wouldn't have happened. So. Anyway, like, she goes down to the bottom floor. She sees Emmett. She's like, oh, what's wrong?
With the jury, then
exactly. We might win the case. And then she, like, goes down, and Emmett's just like, I'm such an idiot. Like, the only reason I got this thing was because Callahan likes me. Yeah. Because he wants to have sex with me, pretty much.
Right. He thinks I'm...
Yeah. And so, never mind. I'm just going back to California. Like, fuck this. Like, whatever. And she's like, but Emmett's like, stay. Like, you're doing great. Be like, but, it doesn't matter. They just think I'm a piece of ass. Right. Like, which, hey, fair. This probably does happen, really, where it's the weird imposter syndrome. She's not being taken serious. Yeah, it's an imposter syndrome. It's this thing where it's like, why am I even here? Like, what the fuck? She decides to quit, and Emmett's, like, kind of heartbroken and all this. So then you see that she's packed up, for all this. Mm-hmm. She's packed her car up. She's going and she's leaving Massachusetts. She goes to see Paulette and she hugs her. She's just like, they just thought of me as a piece of ass. Like, I'll just go back to California. I'll just do my thing. And so then you see that...
sad to see her go.
Yeah, she's sad to see her go. Like, you've been so great, all this. And then you see someone at the salon, and you see that it is Professor Stromwell. Mm-hmm. And Professor Stromwell says, because she's overheard this whole conversation...
law school.
She's like, forget law school, all this. And so Professor Stromwell's there, and she's like, you know, if you're going to let one asshole, like, you know, derail your whole, you know, career, then you're not the girl that I thought you were then, you know? And she just tells her, she's like, hey, girl, I get it. I've done this for a long time. And if you're going to let one man get you down, then you know what? Maybe you're not the kind of girl I thought you were.
Right.
And she's like, you know what? All right. I got you. So then you see them, you see Emmett and Vivian in the prison with Brooke. And so they're like, where's Elle at? And she's like, she quit, like, you know, all this. Emmett's talking about that. And then Vivian makes some snide comment about, like, you know, you don't even know. She makes some snide comment, about that whole thing. And then Emmett's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And then pretty much Emmett says, like, listen, Callahan hit on her, and, like, that's why she's leaving. And then Vivian's like, oh, shit, I made a totally huge mistake. And then she's like, well, we were going to win the case because they are watching Callahan on TV. He's an asshole, which also is so funny because he's like hitting on Elle and all this stuff. If you don't already know, Victor Garber in real life is a complete homosexual. So, like, it's so funny that he's playing this role, and then in real life he's absolutely gay. Yeah. But anyway, so whatever. But the three of them in the prison decide, all right, we're going to do a little something. Here's what we're going to do. So then we're nearing the end of the movie at this point, but we have that we're in the courtroom. So it's, you know, Callahan's there and everyone's there, you know, getting ready. And then Brooke comes in, and he's like, what are you looking so happy about? You're on trial for murder. And she's just like, get up. Like, you're fired. And he's like, what? Like, what do you mean? And she's just like, you're fired. I got new representation. So then you see the iconic doors open to the courtroom. You see her shoes, and you see that Elle Woods. She's all up in her pink outfit with David behind her, who's kind of helping her out as well. And she's just like, hi. And so they walk in, and so they have found that in the penal code or whatever the fuck, whatever bylaws, it states that in Massachusetts bylaws that, you know, a law student can do this proceeding with the help of a supervising, like, attorney or whatever.
Right.
And so, again, like, they put this to the judge. The DA's like, I don't mind this at all. Like, but Callahan's like, I'm not allowing it. I'm not doing this.
Right.
And then she's like, I don't think you understand. Like, Brooke's all like, I don't think you understand. You're fired, you creep. Like, go away.
She's like, you're fired.
Yeah, you're fired. And so then, you know, they're like, okay, we'll allow it. And then Emmett's like, you know what? I'll supervise, Your Honor. It's fine. And so they're like, well, Miss Woods, then do your thing. So he's like, all right, whatever. Have fun in prison. Right. So then he's all like, all right, whatever. So then you have the DA on one side, and then you have Emmett and Elle. So now they've already done Enrique. Now they are questioning Chutney. Mm-hmm. So Chutney is on the stand. She's 26-year-old daughter, all this stuff. She's a suspect. So that's why she's on the stand. So they're talking about, like, you know, this is Elle who's doing this, and she's talking about, like, some theoretical stuff about the law, but she's like, I know what the judge is all like, I know what mens rea is. Right. Like, she's like, I don't need to know all this. Like, I think she's you need to start questioning. This is what I've been learning, because she's like
literally like a first year student.
Yeah, she's a first year student, so, like, you know, whatever. So, but she's like, I think you need to start questioning your clients. You need to start questioning your witness, and be like, oh, of course. So she's asking these kind of roundabout questions because she doesn't completely know how to ask them. She's just like, okay, so your father was shot. You saw your father's dead body, right? You saw blah, blah, blah. But she doesn't know how to ask the question. So she's like, so you took a shower. So you didn't hear the gunshot from the shower. Right. But somewhere within the 20 minutes that you were in the shower, your father was shot. But you couldn't hear the shot because you were in the shower. So she just doesn't know how to ask these questions because she's a first-year attorney. Yeah. And so she's a law student. So, but Emmett's just like, go ahead. Like, don't worry. You're fine. And people are thinking, like, oh, you're being so silly. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, what are you doing? And so she's asking, she's asked Chutney, she's like, Miss Wyndham, what had you done earlier that day? And so Chutney's all like, well, I got up, you know, got a latte, went to the gym, got a perm, and I came home. So again, you had this whole scene of, like, she doesn't know how to ask these questions, and she talked about how she was in the shower, why she couldn't hear the gunshot, all these things. And Elle is like, she got a perm and she came home. And this puts the light bulb in her head of like, when you got in the shower? And they're all like, I'm pretty sure
at
the
that
client...
point, it's like, she's like...
Yeah. She was in the shower. She's like, okay, yes, Your Honor, I get it.
Now she's like, No, I was just going to say, because she kept saying the shower, and then when she was like... She's like, what'd you do? She's like, I got up, got a latte...
Went to the gym, got a perm,
and whatever. And then she was like...
Her light bulb goes off where she's like, were you got in the shower?
Yeah, she's like, wash my hair.
Yeah, she was washing her hair. She said she was washing her hair.
Yeah.
And so, so they're like...
it clicked for her. She was like, well, you can't do that.
Yeah, so she talks about...
you can do that. It's just that your perm is not going to...
So it's going to ruin it. So, like, she's pretty much like... She's like, Miss Wyndham, like, had you gotten a perm before? And she was like, yes. She's like, how many would you say? She's like, 2 since I was 12. You know, you do the math.
2 years since I was 12.
Yeah, exactly. And then she's talking about, like, my sorority sister, Tracy Marcinko, got a perm. But, curls weren't a good look for her. She didn't have your bone structure. And then you just see a nice little thing of Raquel Welch just being like, aw. Which is one of my favorite parts. Oh, and by the way, also, her friends have now come to
they like sneak into the thing.
Sneak in there. And so they're all like, oh, it's like everything, like with the little judge and everything. And then Margot is the best character. She just like claps. She's just like, vote for Elle. It's so stupid. I love her. But anyway, so they sit down. They're like, ladies, take a seat. But anyway, so back to questioning Chutney though. So she's just like, so she, my sorority sister entered this like wet t-shirt contest where she was completely toes down from head to toe the day she got a perm. And she was all like, they were all like, why is this relevant? And they were like, why is this relevant? I'd be like, oh, I have a point, I promise. And they're like, wake it then.
Yeah.
And so she was like, so she asked Chutney, she was like, why did Tracy Marcinko's curls get ruined when she got hosed down?
Yeah.
And then she's like, because they got wet, being just like snarky about it. And she's like, exactly, because isn't the first rule of perm maintenance is to not wet your hair for 24 hours at a risk of deactivating the ammonium thioglycolate? And then she's like, then Chutney's like, yes. And she's like, and wouldn't somebody who's gotten 30 perms throughout her life know this rule? And she's just like, yeah. And she's like, and if you were washing your hair, which I expect you weren't because your curls are still intact, you wouldn't have had time to like, you wouldn't have been in the shower to do that. Like, you would have been able to hear the gunshot because you wouldn't have taken a shower if you'd gotten a perm that day at all.
Right.
So then so for you to make your story plausible, you would have had to see Mrs. Wyndham with a gun in her hand, to make your story plausible. Isn't that right? Like, she is literally just like all of it.
Right.
And this is when Chutney says, like, she's my age. Did she tell you that? How would you feel if someone who was your age married your father, pretty much?
Yeah.
And she's like, you had time to hide the gun, didn't you, Chutney, when you shot your father? And then Chutney just says, like, I didn't mean to shoot him. I thought it was you walking through the door. And she points at Brooke. And what's funny in this scene, too, I mean, they must show it in, like, law schools at this point. What's funny about it is that I don't even think Elle wasn't even trying to get this information from her at all.
Yeah.
It was just her own kind of knowledge of how perms work. Just, like, was like, wait a minute, like, this is what it was. She wasn't asking her, like, you killed your father. She'd be like, well, she did kind of say, like, you were upset with your father, weren't you? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But she didn't mean to have her say, I didn't mean to shoot him. She just came out and said it. But, like, I don't think she was expecting her to confess. So that's why she's literally is like,
and then she's like,
oh my God. And then Emmett's like, oh my God. And then the judge is like, oh my God. And then they're like, all right, arrest Chutney, you're going to jail. And then Brooke, you're free to go. And so then, like, everyone erupts into, wonderful. Oh, Paulette's also there too. She comes in with the UPS guy. It's nice. But yeah, so I mean, that's what happens pretty much. And so it all ends. And so
then when
everyone is there, like, they're walking down the stairs. Sorry. They're walking down the stairs.
Well,
they're like, how did you know?
Before that, after they take Chutney in custody and Brooke's free to go. Then when they're in their like the lobby, then Warner comes to her. Yeah, like after like that happens.
So yeah, Warner's coming. He's all like
outside the courtroom.
Yeah, he's all like, you know, you did so good in there. Like, you know, I want you back pretty much.
Yeah, he's like crawling back to her, and she was like,
yeah, she's like, you know, oh Warner, that's so nice. But if I'm gonna be a partner by the time I'm 30, I'm gonna need somebody who like, you know, is like serious or whatever.
And she was like, I'm gonna need somebody who's not such a bonehead.
Exactly, and it's so funny because she's like, using what he said in the date in the beginning back on him, which is really funny.
Exactly.
So yeah, and so the bailiffs like open the doors for her. She leaves out. We then see 3 years later where we're in 2004. Well, yeah, then
they were like when she was, so they were walking out of the doors and they're like, how did you know that she, and then she was like, any
Cosmo girl would know.
Yeah, would know.
You know, or whatever. But it's really nice.
Because she's brilliant, of course.
Of course, right. But yeah, so then you have, it's 4 years later. It's like 3 years later in 2004. This is not what 2004 looks like, but okay, whatever. Yeah. And so we have our graduation from Harvard Law School. Mm-hmm. We have Stromwell there, who's giving like the kind of opening speech and talking about who the valedictorian is. And it happens to be Miss Elle Woods, who had a very interesting start. Now, I don't know the whole fucking speech back of my hand or whatever. You could look it up if you want to. But it's pretty much her saying, like, you know, don't just see people in their first, like, don't take people's, like, impressions, like, their first impressions. Like, you know, give people a chance, all this kind of stuff. You know, because you see, like, Emmett's, so you see, like, Emmett is there, but you also see, like, you know, Vivian's there, and, yeah, like, she just talks about how, like, you know, sense of self, and, like, passion, and she talks about Professor Stromwell saying that thing, but she talks about how there is passion to the law, and all that kind of stuff.
And believing in yourself.
And believing in yourself, and all that good stuff. Yeah. And so she's like, as we go out into the world, you know, remember all this, and then she's like, yeah, you know, so congratulations, class 2004. We did it! And so it's all nice. And everyone throws their caps up in the air.
And then, yeah, she throws their caps up in the air.
Yeah.
And, like, she's, like, looking up. And, like, I think we were saying that at the end of the movie when Warner's like, I want you back. In this part, she's wearing a wig, as we said previously.
Yeah. Right.
And then Perfect Day starts playing.
Perfect Day starts playing by Haku again. And we see that, Warner...
like before, you're right.
Yeah, Vivian and... Well, yeah, it's before a part of that. So we
while that's playing.
Exactly. Vivian and... Vivian broke up with Warner, and now she and Elle are best friends.
That's right.
She does come back in the sequel, which is kind of nice, too. So we see that they're friends. We see that Warner doesn't have a girlfriend. He got no job offer, so he didn't graduate with honors, so he's just a loser.
Yep.
And then Emmett actually quit Callahan's firm, and he now works for himself. He's working at his own law firm, and they've been dating.
Yep, Paulette and the UPS
US guy, they are expecting a child. They're going to name Elle, and all this stuff. It's, like, really cute. And so, yeah, and then you just see, like, the Perfect Day song is playing, but then you just see it
and then you see that Emmett is going to...
propose, yeah.
He's going to propose.
He's going to propose to her. And so you just see this kind of, like, close-up of, like, her, like, up at this podium and all that. And then, yeah, that's pretty much the end. And then it's the end. And then also the title sequence, the end credits start playing. And that song is One Girl Revolution, which is playing on that.
Oh.
Which, fun fact, that's in the movie Cadet Kelly with Hilary Duff.
Okay.
They do play that. But yeah, but that's pretty much the end. And so everybody, that is the end of Legally Blonde. So in regards to Legally Blonde, you know, I think it goes without saying, I mean, this movie, we were already talking about how much it was awesome before. It's just still a really good movie. I think it is. I think the reason it has stuck around, not just because, like, Reese Witherspoon is, like, really wonderful and charming, but, like, I also just think, like, this story is a very empowering one. It's, like, very fun feminist, like, literature, you know, and, like, this, like, example of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just something about believing in yourself and doing what you need to do, and, never judging a book by its cover, hopefully. Right. That's the other thing, too. So I just think it is it's a PG-13 movie, I think. You know, it's, like, very light. Yeah. But, you know, I think it is something where, yeah, you could show a young girl this and be like, hey, this is a movie that's, like, super important. And it's, like, something I loved watching, you know? So, like, I'd absolutely show, like, you know, little Tasha or something. Like, show her Legally Blonde. Yeah. Like, why not? Tasha is one of Barbie's kids, if you didn't know, but, you know, whatever. But, yeah, so it's, like, I would absolutely want to show a young lady this, of, like, hey, have you never seen this? Like, this is really fun and silly. It's silly. It has heart, you know, but all that. I just love it. How about you, Sarah? What's your little wrap up? What's your
Is it a 10 out of 10 for you?
It's like a 9.5 out of 10 if we're doing that. I don't know. There's just like little things where I'm like, I wish it was a little more diverse, I guess. But besides that, all of it's still there for you. But
it's definitely a good watch to put on, and
I think there's a particular reason why a person like Ariana Grande like homages this in her music video. It's like, of course you do, because this is a movie that young girls grew up with, and I'm not a woman, but like, like it's just something where like, it's just a nice watch. It's empowering. It has a good message to it. Fucking watch it. Like, if you haven't already done so, you need to.
Right.
So, and right now it's on Tubi for a few more days, I think, so that's nice. And the sequel's on there too if you want to watch it. And yeah, I just think that that's pretty much it. But Sarah, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have anything you want to plug or whatever? Like, you don't have nothing?
No, not really.
Yeah, no.
But thanks for having me.
Of course. I would love having you on the show. It's always nice. But yeah, I think that's everything we can think of. And, yeah, I think that's everything. So thanks so much for being on the show, Sarah. As always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so at cultcinemacircle@gmail.com. If you'd like to give any movie recommendations, give feedback on the show, or if you'd just like to say hey, I'm open to all of it. You can also follow the show on Instagram at cultcinemacircle and on Twitter at cultcinecircle. I tend to announce the movies that I'm going to be covering and just interact with people on there if they want. You can also follow me on Letterboxd at Jesse, Jesse, Kremp, Kremp, all one word. On that platform, I tend to log the movies that I watch. I write little stupid reviews about them and just general foolishness over there. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast on your podcatcher of choice, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm pretty much on all of them. Be sure to leave 5 stars and a 1 to 2 sentence review about the show so we can grow the audience and then just spread the love all around. Be sure to tune in next week to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, where I'll be covering 2009's Jennifer's Body. A newly possessed high school cheerleader turns into a succubus who specializes in killing her male classmates. Can her best friend put an end to the horror? As always, thank you for taking the time to listen to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. And remember, vote for Al! Take care. Bye.